What's up? Scarab. Hey, Virgie, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Virgo. Happy birthday to you. Yeah, we're gonna get into some more. We look at some more videos. Or video. So far, I just found one. I had been looking for this video. It's been in my mind. It gave me a lot of information. Um, I'm here to enlighten you, confirmation, somebody you know, conversation, whatever the deal may be, okay? It's the Survey of Moorish History, Part 1, by Booker T. Coleman, Check 1. He tells a lot of history. Now, some of the things I thought was cruel, like our people going to the mountains and nobody coming to rescue them. But I think the Ice Age started. But anyway, here we go.
That I found very important. You said something about numbers. We invented numbers, but the Europeans always said that the Arabs invented
Hold on, let me
numbers.
check something. Hold on, y'all.
Isn't that what they say?
Make
Well,
sure
we
my
found-
earphones don't get in the way. Let me check my earphones right quick. Make sure they're off. Yeah. Yeah, they off. Yeah.
Sure, yeah, we've heard that. But the reality of it is that numbers have always been around us. And when you go into the most ancient of civilizations, numbers play a very important role in the development of the civilization. And numbers are used for a lot of different things, and then mathematics becomes the manipulation of numbers. But numbers are a very spiritual essence if you understand them and if you bring them into consciousness a certain way. When we look at the Moors and we look at history, when we look at ourselves as a people, one of the things that I try to do is find, as we said about Professor Clark, giving us an understanding of the philosophical underpinnings is how did
Hey,
we
y'all,
get
how
here?
y'all doing?
There are three questions
This
that I
what
always
I
ask
listened to a long
that
time
we
ago.
should be able to
It's been in
answer.
my subconscious, so I
Who
wanted
are
y'all
we
to
in
show
this
y'all.
world?
Yeah,
Where
give me
are
some
we in
likes when
this
y'all
world?
come in.
And
I
how in
appreciate
the
it.
world did we get here? And if you can answer these three questions, that will cover, and there are other questions to ask, but these three questions fundamentally will get you at least to the point of consciousness. As an African people in
Some people are very
1999,
blunt.
as this is being done, August, it is important for us to understand how is it that I am standing where I am and you are where you are. How did this happen? And it makes no difference what background you are. But as an African person with Native American ancestry, I ask myself this question. And what I come to realize is that if, for me to understand where I am today, I have to understand what happened in October of 1492 in the Caribbean area, this area here. But for me to understand what happened here, I've got to understand what happened in Spain, January 2nd, 1492. If I may come over to the larger piece, this is a map of Europe. This again is a relief map. I purposely have this slanted because this is a larger version of Al-Andalusia, or Spain and Portugal, but this is it on the map here. This version here is this here. The Pyrenees are here, the Pyrenees are here. So the top of this right here is basically right here. And then here come the Pyrenees, and then here comes Spain, and Portugal is over here. As you can see, this is the same place. There's no reason why this should be different. But because of the nature of what happened in this part of the world, there are different changes, but the language structurally is basically the same, but there are differences basically also. To understand what happened here, January 2nd, 1492, you have to understand the Crusades. And to understand the Crusades, you have to understand the Moors. So to look at the whole thing, backtracking it, to
I'm
understand
not gonna beg y'all for no
who we
likes, but I
are,
would like y'all to
where we
put
are,
likes when
and
y'all
how did
come
we
in.
get here, you have to understand the Moors. Because from 710 AD, there comes an event that changes history. Because had Africans not traveled from the northern part of Africa into Spain and Portugal, bringing with them first and foremost, they brought soap. Second of all, they brought what we today call alcohol, which, well, they called it alcohol. We today call it alcohol. Because Europe was dying at large numbers through the Black Plague or the bubonic plague. I needn't tell you why they call it the Black Plague. And what the Moors did, what Africans did over a period of a couple of centuries was brought the remedy, the prescription that would heal them and then set them on a path to destroy the world that came in and save them. And it's important that this make a step-by-step common sense, and that there is no emotion tagged into what it is that I'm saying, that this be, it can be passionate but not emotional. Because there are things that I'm going to say that some people are not going to like. But it's important to say it so that we can understand the predicament that we are in today. And I encourage you, first of all, let us look at certain books that might be of great interest to you. The first book that I'd like to draw your attention to is the book that was edited by Dr. Ivan van Sertima, a brilliant book called The Golden Age of the Moor. It's a very good book. It's a very important book because what I like about Dr. van Sertima is that he brings the greatest minds together and forms essays on themes and topics. This one happens to be the Moors, where he's brought a great deal of talent. And there's a lot of talent here, but there's one particular brother that I tend to quote a lot. And I want that to be understood, that much of my quotations come from Dr. Jose Pimento Bay, who is a brilliant brother and who's brought a lot of knowledge of the Moor to us. And much of what I have studied comes out of many of the pieces that he has developed. Because before we get into other books, we really have to start with our own. Because once you're grounded in an African perspective, then whatever they say about you is understandable. Because from this book, I then would encourage you to get the book that Dr. Joseph Ben Yekinen is always talking about by Dr. Stanley Lane Poole, called The Story of the Moors in Spain. This is a very good book. This picture, by the way, is the one that stands in the Philadelphia Museum. This is the one that you may see a lot of pictures of. This is a Moor, and this painting was done in Spain. So this brother, if you want to really get to it, he is Spanish. Spanish in the original sense of the word. He is a descendant of the Moors. And that's what the Moors look like. I know so many brothers look like that. The next book that helps you understand the vast trade and understand the underpinning of the Moors. The Moors had to have had a working knowledge of the world for them to be able to create the kind of trade that they created. You cannot be trading in materials from distant parts of the world if you've not been to those parts of the world. You can say that it was brought in, but chances are, if you're dealing with it, chances are you brought them back or somehow bought them from someone, but the trade obviously was being done by the Moors. So the Moors obviously had a golden trade. They were not just a people, they were a people with a civilization and a trade in place. And it's important that once that's grounded, then you can understand why they would have done the things that they did. And then, of course, the next book that I found very interesting was a book entitled Spain, A Land Blighted by Religion, by Joseph Lewis. That's another very interesting book that will give you some more information on the Moors. Now, from these four books, just in the golden age of the Moor alone, there's such a large encyclopedic reference library that if you wanted more information on whatever area you wanted, you'd find it here. So these four books are a strong foundation for us understanding who the Moors were, where that word comes from, and all of the confusion in terms of Arabs. There's no such thing. Arabs don't really exist as a people. The Arab people are a combination. In fact, I don't even call them Arabs. I call them Afrabs, because the nature of being an Arab means you have to be African. Just like in terms of being Jewish, in the sense of the ancient word Jewish, the word Semite. There's no such thing as a Semite. I'm a Semite. African American's a Semite. Semite means mixture. Semi meaning the mixture. the Semite. Not only that, but the word Semite is not used as a people, it's used as a language. It's a Semitic language, which meant that in this part of the world, languages of the northern climate and languages of the southern climate came together, mixed together, and created a Semitic tongue, or a tongue, a language of mixture, all in this area here. Arabs, as we know as a people, didn't exist prior to the Prophet Muhammad. Blessings on that brother's name. They didn't exist. No one referred to Arabs prior to Muhammad. They didn't exist. There were people, but they were independent nations. Some people call them tribes. I tend to stay away from that word because of what it means, but they were independent nations. It was the faith system of Islam coming out of Africa that united these peoples together. Prior to that, you did not have a unity of people in this area.
Coming out of Africa.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, when you look at the history, what we know is that Mecca, from what we're looking at in the works of many of our scholars, that the Kaaba, that is used as a centerpiece to Islam, that essence that they must walk around, that black essence, and I want to call it an essence because I don't want to call it out of its name, but that stone that they walk around, that huge piece that they make their hajj for, is believed, and research shows, is one of the relationship temples to the Grand Lodge of Luxor. And that in fact, that used to be an astronomical observatory. And that the only thing that is left behind is this black essence that people use to revere, and that is when you make your hajj. That's how important astronomy is. Most of the constellations and stars that we speak about are not in the Latin language, they're in the Arab language. But in the Afrab language, we have to remember what was going on in this part of the world. That in fact, it was Muhammad, the prophet, blessings on that brother's name, that had gone into Mecca and was having problems with the families of Mecca. So therefore, he came back to Medina. That is why I say to anybody of Spanish background, of Hispanic background, if your name is Medina, that is not a Spanish name. That's an African name. If your name is Alvarez, anything with Al in it is not a Spanish name. That is coming out of the Al-Islam, the whole Alvarez, or whatever that may be. Whatever your name with the A-L is an African name. The reason why I say that is because when the Prophet returned to Medina to plan his next strategy to move into Mecca, he sent Bilal, his adopted son, to Ethiopia. And it is believed that he sent him to Ethiopia, and he gathered not just the people, the Ethiopians, but he also learned the faith system, because Islam as we know it did not exist in this part of the world during this time. Not only that, but Islam really as a faith system in this area developed after the Prophet's transcendence. But in this part of the world, there was a lively faith system that had mixed the Amen priesthood with the Aten priesthood. The Aten priesthood being what Judaism came out of, and the Amen priesthood is what Christianity came out of. There were groups of Africans in this area that decided to take the best of both, put it together, and in the mountains and ambas of Ethiopia and Sudan, they developed this great faith system that Bilal came into. He learned it, he stayed with them for years, and when the Prophet called forward his son to return, to go on together to Mecca to take it, Bilal brought back thousands of Ethiopians with this faith system that Muhammad then adapted. Now, I know people don't like to necessarily hear that because we create myths around people, and I'm all for that, but I'm a historian, and I'm a student of Professor Clark, and it's important to separate myth from reality. And the reality of it is that the Islam that we know of today is indigenous to the African continent. So it is not like Islam was brought into Africa. The reason why Islam was so accepted in Africa was because it was an African thing from the beginning. The same way with Christianity. The reason why Christianity was accepted was because Africans knew when they saw this new faith system coming back over, they said, wow, I know we taught you this, but it certainly didn't look like this when we taught it to you. It came back differently than when it had come out of Africa. But all of these faith systems came directly out of this. However, to return back into an ancient time, contemporaries of the ancient Kemites in this part of the world, even going back beyond that, there is a piece that Professor Dana Reynolds talks about, where she talks about a group of Africans in the ancient world known as the Garamantes. The Garamantes are in fact the ancestors to who the Moors would be, who Hannibal is, or who Hannibal was, and the Africans in this area, who the Phoenicians were, who the Carthaginians were, or the Carthadas peoples. All in this area here came out of an African group known as the Garamantes.
And they were African language, indigenous.
Absolutely, and there was no distinction between the Kemites, no distinctions from the Nubians, no distinction from the Monomotapa Empire. There is a cultural unity in Africa. Much of what we are experiencing today is a rewritten version of what the Western world would like us to believe. When we do our research for ourselves and we build upon our own structure what we believe, then things will change. Dr. Wade Noble says correctly, power is the ability to define someone's reality and have that person accept that reality. What they have done is that they have told us who these people are, and we have accepted their definition. We have not accepted their definition. We are defining what we see through the work of our own scholars. And it's not just one person, because I'm not the kind of person or the type of teacher who depends on just one person to say it. I'm the kind of person I need to see 3 or 4 other people say it, maybe not the same way, but somewhere along the same lines. There is no question that the Moorish empires were all African, and if you wanted to see what a typical Moor looked like, go and see what someone from Senegal looks like, because one of the major nations that came out of the Garamantes was known as the Zenaga. And this is something, again, that the golden age of the Moor will bring out. And the Zenaga, linguistically, are the Senegal. So if you want to see what a Moor looked like, look at a Senegalese person. And if you don't know a Senegalese person, go find a picture of a man by the name of Dr. Cheikh Anta Diop. Even Alex Haley's ancestors, coming from this area of the world, the Senegambia, they will be what the Moors look like. Not necessarily Alex Haley, because he, of course, being an African American, might be impacted by other cultures. We're dealing with the original cultures. Kunta Kinte was a Moor. That whole system here, these are the Moors in here. And it's not surprising that you would see Ghana, Mali, and Songhai coming out in the Middle Ages, or what's so-called 1211, because you have the whole nations already here. And please don't tell me that Afrabs came here and built the University of Timbuktu in a couple of 100 years, when we already know that this knowledge taught in Timbuktu was in Africa for thousands of years before the so-called Arabs had even come out. Their northern part had come out of the mountains, of the Caucasus Mountains. So we know that this information, Timbuktu had every reason to exist long before Islam. In fact, I would dare say that it was Timbuktu and other places like that in Central and West Africa that gave birth to the whole Islamic thought. That then would lead to the conceptualization of the faith system. So it is indigenous to this part of the world that Islam would come. And not better or worse, it's just that's where it originated from. Okay, so you have these Garamantes, you have the civilizations that are growing and developing, you have the Nok culture all here, although they may not be what's involved up here, but you have civilizations throughout Africa. So there's no reason why it would be a surprise that they would be able to do the things that we're about to talk about. There's a great deal of intrigue, but let's just go back to Egypt. Let's go back to Kemet, and let's start with the Greeks in 332 BC. That come in, and because of the way in which Cambyses in 525 and the Persians treated the Kemites worked with Alexander to expel the Persians. The Greeks come in and set up house, but they can't exist. So in 30 BC, the Romans come in and take over.
Were Greece ever a nation state? Why do they say that Greece never became a nation state?
Because the same reason that the Arabs never had a real nation state until they were unified around a single thought. There's no way, because the Greek city-states as they existed were in eternal warfare anyway. That's all they understood was war. And so what developed was
where you from?
Latched on to the Kemetic thought.
Where do you live?
But the Kemetic thought was never really theirs. So they never really had a true ownership of it. So they were never able to amass into that working unit because they never really created anything here in their homeland, because much of who and what they were occurred in Egypt.
Oh, I'm in Texas.
That's right, they moved their capital
Yes, and Rome did the same thing. And here in the United States, we've got Memphis, Tennessee. And we've got Cairo. All of these come directly out of these concepts. They moved their capitals here. Same. And every major nation, from the beginning until this very day, has studied in Egypt, including Hitler. That's why he had the eagle or the bird on his hat. That's why where he got the swastika from.
Hey,
That was an Egyptian
Ismail.
symbol
I
that
guess that's how
balanced
you
the
say
yin
it.
and the yang, the male and the female, the law of polarity. He took that to be a symbol of this new white supremacist nation that was about to rise and take over the world. This was his balance, was the Urugu balance, man with man, not realizing that the perfect union is the male and the female. But see, when you're on that white supremacist mentality, you think things that
I am.
are
How about yourself?
out of nature. And so this is what he was. Every nation has looked to Egypt because Egypt's climate allows for things to exist for long periods of time. That's Egypt's secret. It's so dry. When you get into inner Africa, you get the rainy season, you get the monsoon. All in this
That's
area
great.
here, very difficult to preserve things over thousands and thousands of years.
Yeah.
But in Egypt, you have the ability that dryness of the land keeps things in place, whether it is paper, whether it is stone. You don't have the wearing away. In this day and age, although we believe that there was great floods in Egypt at one time, thousands of years ago, in contemporary Egypt and going back to the Pharaonic period, there was an open sky. This is why you see Africans traveling north, because as they moved away from all of these, they tested astronomical ideas.
Thank
but
you.
as
I
they
appreciate
traveled
it.
further
And I will.
north, Kemet became, or
Welcome
Egypt
to the
became a
family.
center point because they could see the skies better because there were no clouds, no rain. So it's like if you and I are trying to find a better way of looking at New
Okay, I
Jersey,
thank you, Chick.
and we keep moving
Appreciate
up and
that,
up.
child.
We move from
Welcome
Brooklyn
to
to
the
Manhattan.
family.
That's not a good view. We go to the Bronx, and all of a sudden we have a great view. We're the same African that was in Brooklyn, same African that was in Manhattan, but because of why we were moving the
You
way
too.
we were, we find ourselves in the Bronx. But we're moving because we have a specific agenda, and that was to see the skies better. Because the better we saw the skies, the better we understood the earth. The better we understood the earth, the better harvest we'd have. The better harvest, the better we would eat. The better we eat, the better we think. The better we think, the better we would develop our culture, our civilization, and our nature. So there's a direct relationship between wisdom and survival. And this information gathering and coming up through this area here, then the Romans, again, we have, and now that we have the map of Europe, what we have here is that coming out of all these areas here,
I appreciate
Norway,
that. Maybe
Sweden,
one day.
Finland, Germany, particularly Germany, up in this area here, you've got these barbarian tribes coming down, and the Roman Empire talks about this. The Roman Empire talks about these northern blondes that coming down, they're dirty, they're ill, but they're very violent. They have no culture, they are offering nothing. These Germans, these northern Germans, are the ones that come down beyond the mountains, go through all this area here and start taking over. This is when the lighter complexions start coming, because even here you don't have so many people who are that light complexion. So you have all these people coming across, and then finally they come down into this area. The Visigoths and Vandals are traveling west. The Ostrogoths travel east into Italy. So the Ostrogoths are who the so-called Othello is doing battle with in Venice.
What area are we talking?
Well, right now we're talking about anywhere between 332 and 525 AD. We're talking in the 500s now. This is when Spain is being taken over by the Visigoths. The 525s, the 530s, going even further. Beyond, give or take decades. I'm afraid of dates because of the nature of the politics of dates. But we do know it's after 332 AD, and we know that it is the cause of the so-called fall of the Roman Empire. Not only because of its own internal destruction, but because of barbarians coming through and destroying everything that are in there, that's in the line of sight. And then they find themselves down here in Spain.
Now point out the areas that had civilizations, in Europe at this time that had buildings and culture, religion.
You really don't have too much of that. We're talking about European Dark Ages. And the Dark Ages is the ages that Europeans don't like to look at. They don't like to remember that when the Moors in 710 crossed over into Spain, 99.8% of Europe was illiterate. They had no books, didn't have anything. Because remember what's happening, the Roman Empire is destroying all of the Kemetic knowledge, first of all. The Catholic Church is destroying all sorts of documents. They're destroying the fundamental civilizations in places that they come to.
How are they destroying them and why?
Well, they're afraid of them. The Catholic Church is definitely afraid of a number of things that's coming out of Africa, particularly the Amen priesthood. Because, see, the Catholic Church wasn't what it was. The Catholic Church changed it with Constantine in 332 AD. He's the one that changes the whole feeling of who Christ was. But in this time, 332, he's also doing battle with other parts of the world, and he's trying to consolidate the Catholic Church. He's really trying to consolidate a force that will become a major force of the world. So what he does is, since he knows he can't beat Christianity, he overtakes it, he usurps it, and he changes the definition of its central cult figure, Jesus the Christ. And he changes Jesus the Christ from a supernatural, extraordinary human being into a human being that is God. The African priesthood, the Orthodox Egyptian Coptic Church, and the Ethiopians don't want any part of this because they know that this is not the way in which their spirituality is. So he calls a meeting. From the moment that the Africans move away from the Roman Empire, that's when Rome starts having problems, but people don't want to talk about that. The barbarians come down and overtake him. But what Constantine attempts to do is he sidesteps the Roman Empire into the Roman Catholic Church, and the emperor becomes pope. Therefore, the Roman Empire doesn't fall, it sidesteps, but it loses its state power in a sense because it becomes more spiritual. However, that's not enough to fight these barbarians who don't care anything about God. So they come down and they kill off and they destroy whatever has already been developed, which is not much, but there's just a little bit of something left over from the Roman Empire that was left over from what they learned from the Greeks, or what the Greeks learned from the ancient Canaanites.
Now, just one thing, and I hate to interrupt, but these Visigoths and these aliens that are coming down after the mountain, who are they? What are their history?
They are basically coming out of these Germanic areas. All this area here, remember the 51st parallel that we talked about? The 51st parallel being basically right here. It cuts Europe in half. When you look at it, it just cuts it right across when you look at the 51st parallel. And everything north of this is cut off. So you have these people coming like Hamburg and Denmark. That's why you have, the closer you get here, the blonder, the lighter, the more blue eye you get.
So those were ice people.
These were ice people coming down after the ice mountains had begun to melt during a warming period that began to melt the ice that had started from Greenland. And Greenland is right here. This is Iceland, this is Greenland. Greenland on this map would be more over here. But it is out of this area because this was the last place for the ice to melt. Because remember, the Ice Age always started in Greenland and then covered the globe coming down this way. So that as the waters and the ice receded, the further north you got was the later in the period that the ice melted. So by the time the ice melted up in this time, these Norway, Sweden, Finland, all this area here coming down, these are all the people because they are not indigenous to this land. They've only been hiding out in the caves while it was cold. Then they start coming down, so none of them are really Germans or Poland. That just happened to be the land they were in prior to their coming further south. So that by the time they get down into this area, these individuals have just totally destroyed the whole conceptual framework, so then you have the whole history of what occurs at that point.
How am I stealing content when I'm showing the person's name? And I just, if you just know what I said when I first started, you can know what I said. This is history, okay, that I'm sharing. So not stealing.
This area here, if we can move to this 500, 600 year mark, we have Visigoths and Vandals who have come down and plundered this land. They are just living and just abusing the people in this area. Constantly just raiding them and stealing from them. And what happens is that word here gets
You
to
don't
the
have to
people
stay,
here
Pete.
that
You
are
welcome to
in
leave.
Morocco and in Africa,
Thanks for
that
coming.
Spain is a very interesting place and that it has land there. They already know this because they're there, but in 710, Tarif, T-A-R-I-F, is sent across to look at the prospects of going into Spain. He comes back down, and in 711, he comes back, he speaks to his general Tariq, and in 711, Tariq and groups of Africans with some Arab translators move across and take Spain. And for the next couple centuries, battles ensue where Moors are literally going across this area into France and even impacting other parts of Europe, but not in large numbers. What's interesting is that we see that by the 1200s, we see Africans coming back, and again, a lot of this has to be researched. This is not written in stone. But what we find is that Al-Andalusia, or Moorish Spain, is bounded by certain things. And again, I encourage you, in The Moors in Spain, is where Dr. Stanley Lane Poole talks about the boundaries of what would become the African Europe. And what he looks at is he looks at what is known as the north boundaries is what is known as the Montañas or Sierra de Guadarrama, in this area right here. Going across to what is known as Coimbra. That's the northern boundaries of Al-Andalusia. And then they use what is known as the Ebro River to be their northeast boundary. And they come down the coast, across all this area here, come across, and that becomes Moorish Spain. Right there. This is Moorish, this is Spain. All of this is what would be considered Spain, let's say. You see? Now here would be the dismantling. Aragon, Castile. Ferdinand and Isabella, they marry and then come down into Spain. Come down where the Moors are. Now, why is it like this? Why would these mighty Moors travel so far through Europe and then come down and settle here? Europeans will tell you that it's because of Charles Martel, who was a relative of Charlemagne, who was a warrior, and he was quite a warrior. Charles Martel, no question, he was a fantastic warrior, there's no question. Didn't have morals, but he was quite a warrior. But the key is that when you look at the topography, the land of Europe and Spain, you'll come to realize that here would be most natural why you would have this like that. Look at these mountains. See, this is what the relief map does. It allows you to see that here's the river, there's the Ebro. At the same time, here are the mountains. These mountains that are in flat form, these are the mountains right here. You see? So you could see easily. These are the this is a river right here. This is a valley. This was very fertile. This is where a lot of the different kinds of the olives, the Valencia oranges, so not Spanish, they came from Africa. All kinds of fruit and vegetables that we today think come from Spain, the olive oils and all of this, they come directly out of the African impact, the Moorish impact on Spain. And so throughout all of this area here, you have, and you can see why the mountains, because these become boundaries. These mountains down here, these mountains are known as Sierra Morena, Black Mountains. All, and more, of course, Morena. More, of course, comes from the concept of black. But this is what eventually, and you can see why. There's a natural reason why this would become a very important area. And that is because this is where fruits and vegetables close. When you get up into this area here, this mountainous area here, all this area here, you can't grow too much here. very cold, very damp. When you get down out these mountains, it's beautiful. They describe the weather here in its greatest times as wonderful, where you could grow things. So actually, the reasons why they say Africans retreated. Africans did not retreat to this area. This was the area that was reminiscent of home. And who would want to live in the cold and in the mountains and in the damp? Why would you want to live in a place you can't grow the kinds of things that you can grow in here? So it's important that here and in Italy, look at the olive oil. Everything that Spain is known for, Italy is known for. Grapes, wine, champagne, the Toledo, Wilkinson, razors, swords, steel making, all comes out of the Moorish impact in Spain. So this area here eventually becomes the final piece for the Moors. From 710 until 1492, Africans rule this part of the world and bring civilization to this part of the world.
What are some of the things that bring?
Well, for one thing, in some of the areas that they bring hot and cold running water. One of the most important things that they brought a number of things, but one thing they brought was corral, where they taught Europeans how to put animals in corrals instead of having them run through their homes. That's why we have chicken pox today, because Europeans used to have chickens running in and out of their homes. The Africans say, you don't have animals in your home. Animals stay outside. They're in a corral or they're in a chicken coop. But that's where animals belong. And so the Moors brought the concept of separating humans from animals. They also brought ideas of building. There was actually a city in Cordova that ran for miles, lit by lights, lamps. So this is some of the things. They brought all sorts of different kinds of technology to this part of the world, where Europe for the first time began to eat foods that they never ate before, to see people that they never saw before, to learn languages they never knew existed, but most importantly, there were pathways of the world that they learned through the Moors. These same paths that the Moors took to leave this part of the world were the same roads that the Europeans took to conquer it.
Before the universities, talk about what they taught in those universities and how that impacted Europe.
One of the keys that they taught was that they broke knowledge up into different areas. For instance, in our schools today, when we study math in high school, we study algebra, which by the way is Moor. That's what the Moor brought. Algebra. Algebra is the manipulation of numbers. They brought algebra, and then you study geometry, and then you study trigonometry. What they brought was a sequence of knowledge that one built on the other. In other words, you can't study algebra and then trigonometry, because the principles of geometry lead you to understand trigonometry. When you understand the sequence from algebra to geometry to trigonometry, it then allows you to calculate numbers, which then takes you to the differentiations of the calculuses that you study. Because calculus basically means calculation, but it means manipulation of numbers, which shows you the differentiation and the other kinds of things that you do in math. The Moors brought this into Europe. Every Gothic cathedral that you see is built on the premise of how Moors built the Alhambra and the other kinds of structures in Africa. Every cathedral, every choir situates itself the same way choirs in African choirs would be. They sat at the feet of these Moors, and they learned so much information that they came up here into England, and they started university. In fact, they started two. One was Oxford, and the other was Cambridge. Some of these
folks are patterned after the Moors.
Absolutely, absolutely. In fact, much of the work was studied in Arabic and then translated into another language. There were kings in Spain, the Alfonso kings, were very good at translating. In fact, many of them converted to Islam just to get the information so that they could move up in terms of understanding the intellectual capacity of the Moors. Every university, whether it be Salamanca, whether it be the University of Coimbra, whether it be a university in France, anywhere in the world, it would have been scholars that sat at the feet of Moors that then went to that part of the world, because Europe had no schools.
Oh, Europe had no schools.
No, it had no school. Not only that, but they were not literate. They could not read. There were no books. Everything that had any sense of intellectual growth had been burned or destroyed because the Catholic Church was against knowledge.
Now wait a minute, hold on. They had no schools, the Catholic Church was against knowledge?
Yes, well that's why Copernicus couldn't talk about what he had done until he was dying. Because he was afraid that if he would have dared tell the world that in fact it wasn't the earth that was the center of the solar system and that it was the sun, he would have been murdered. The same way when you look at the way in which you know that Greeks, the Aristotles and the Platos and the Socrates were teaching an African wisdom is because each of them were either murdered, exiled, or beat up for teaching a foreign doctrine in Greece or by Greeks. Now, if this information was indigenous to Greeks, they wouldn't have been accused of teaching a foreign doctrine. So by the nature of the Greeks being against these scholars, they were against information. Well, the Catholic Church played the same role with Copernicus and Galileo and others who had a fixation on spirituality. Even today, if we speak of us and the role that we play in the evolution of life on earth, there would be people who would doom my soul to hell if I were to say that God did not create Adam and Eve. There are those that would have very serious problems with some of the perceptions I have of their faith system because they are so ingrained in their faith system that any information that goes against that bothers them. Well, the same was true with the Catholic Church back then. They did not want schools. They wanted two things, CC. Same thing they want today, control and containment of the masses of the people. That's all they've ever wanted. So basically, the Catholic Church wanted to suffocate intellectual growth so that for you to look at astronomy and to look at the sky and begin to fathom the sky then threatened the spiritual power of the Pope. So that Europe, 99.8%, I'm not sure what I said, but over 99% of not even the kings and queens could read. At the time I'm talking about here, the kings and queens of Europe lived in barns. The castles that you see are not their castles. They did not build those castles. And for you to put an alligator or a crocodile in a moat tells you there are no alligators and crocodiles in Europe. So where did the alligators and crocodiles come from? The same way when you see a lion outside the library, or you see a lion on the shield of a crusader, like Richard the Lionheart, there are no lions in England. So your even reference to the lion has to be an African thing. This is why Medunataire is so important for us to understand the Africanness of Medunataire, because most of the symbols in Medunataire are indigenous to Africa. Why are people like Professor Clark always told us, why are they going to come here with nothing, come here and build everything, and never even think to go back there and build back, even if you didn't do it in your own land, but you got to do it in another land? Why didn't you bring back the knowledge of your land? But you're not going to find the things they said they built. If they were smart enough to come down and build pyramids, why didn't they build the pyramids in Europe? Why don't you see the movement towards intellectual growth? Why is there a dark age? There is a dark age because African knowledge is stuffed out by the Catholic Church. The so-called Renaissance comes at the same time that the Moors are in Europe. Like, for instance, Leonardo da Vinci is 1505. You're dealing with Copernicus. You're dealing with Galileo. You're dealing with Johannes Kepler, coming directly out of the Moorish impact in this part of the world. You look at so-called classical music. I start my day every day with classical music, so-called European classical music. And people say, I'm surprised because out of that, I'll play a little Olatunji. And people say, it's funny that you go from Bach and Beethoven to Olatunji. And they say, what a change. I say, there's no change at all. It's the same thing because Europe didn't have classical music. Europe didn't have music. The Moors brought music into Europe. So the piano is nothing but a harp turned sideways, encased in wood. That's why the piano is shaped just like a harp. Well, the harp is African. There are no harps in Europe. And so it's important that when we look at the things that are in Europe, we have to look at what existed in Africa and what existed in Europe prior to the Moors. As I've said before, I think that to have a Renaissance is the greatest miracle that I've ever seen. Forget the Greek miracle. I think the Renaissance is a miracle because how can you be reborn when you've never been born? For the European to say they went through a Renaissance is like saying you've been reborn, but you've never been born. Europe never had a naissance.
What's the naissance?
A naissance is a birth. Renaissance is a rebirth. That's a French word. Renaissance means rebirth.
Well, perhaps you can tell us what would have been the culture, the lifestyle, and the economics of Europe at this particular time, so that one can kind of get a true picture of what life in Europe was like. I mean,
from the Greek city-states to the warrior Roman class to the Visigoths and the Vandals, Europe has nothing but a succession of wars.
Nothing but a succession of wars.
Exactly. You see, the pharaonic period of Egypt is a timeline, and what we do in the timeline is that we can measure technological advancement according to pharaonic Egypt.
Right.
When you deal with Europe, the timeline, the notches that are on the European timeline are the wars. Europe has had no technological advancement. It hasn't really done the kinds of things with what they know that Africans have done. Therefore, there's nothing but constant wars. The feudal system, and see, this is why, again, in looking at this honestly, Europe, in this area here, like I said before, if you were a stronger so-called lord, even when you look at what they call themselves, a lord, if you were a lord,
whatever,
and your posse was big, and you came upon a group of people that their posse wasn't that big, you could literally, and
do
it was
your
within
history,
your
okay?
right, it was law, not a written law, but just law, because remember, people couldn't write in Europe at this time. It meant that you could overtake that individual's land, you could take his wife, his daughters, everybody, and take over, and they become your slaves. And what you do is you superimpose on that land an unorganized slave system, which becomes a fundamental way of life or a law that you have a right to do this.
Now, when you say unorganized slave system, explain.
I mean, there is no written law that you can actually say, this is why I can own you. This is why I can tell you. What says that you can say it is that I'll kill you.
So,
the bottom line is only the strong survive. And now if a stronger lord came upon that lord, they would take the land. And then pretty soon this constant taking over of the land is, and individuals to safeguard their valuables would keep their valuables in the castle with the lord, which became their bank. And pretty soon, the Lord would give them a paper receipt telling them that they had a certain amount of valuable, and that's what became money. In their mindset, you see, Africans use practical things for money, things that you could use. But paper is just a receipt. So the Lord would get your valuables and merely give you a receipt. And the reality was is he was protecting your wealth against the other people that were coming in. That was the concept of banking.
and so how were the people?
The people were mistreated. They were abused, raped, male and female. They could do whatever they wanted to with whomever they wanted to, and it was the strongest. And then, of course, the generals and the sergeants and all the people within the ranks of the Lord's structure, they could do what they wanted to also. There was no law that protected you. That is why when the Moors came through, the great majority, including the Sephardic Jews, gave arms, told them where the Visigoths were, in fact, aided the Africans to defeat the Visigoths and the Vandals. And I needn't tell you how they conducted themselves when you just look up the word Vandal. They were called Vandals, and we call criminals Vandals, so that's who these were. The Moors, remember now, they have disorganized slavery. The Moors have organized servitude. In other words, when you were in working force of someone that was above you, you were not a slave, you were a servant. It was not a legal system, it was a social status. You were a human being. You were allowed the right to a hearing if you had been transgressed against, even if it was by the so-called person that was over you. When the Moors came into Europe, what occurred, which we would really have a problem with later on,
You can
is
read the
that
titles,
European-
Moorish
the
history.
first slavery was
George, how
white
you
slavery.
doing?
Talk about that.
White folks sold their people to the Moors the moment they saw Moors coming. It was of great pride to be able to have a black face on your family shield. It was an honor for you to have a name like Moore or Morrison. Saint Maurice was the patron saint of Germany, who was, by the way, a Chemite or an Egyptian. When the Moors came over, they were literally
Hi, George.
welcomed into the community for what they brought, because they brought fairness.
Welcome, welcome, welcome.
In Al-Andalusia, if you were Jewish, you were tried by a Jewish court. If you were Christian, you were tried by a Christian court. The only people that the Moors could try were other Moors. There was a universal way that everybody could live in peace. What the Visigoths and Vandals did in terms of religion no longer existed. Their attacks on Jews no longer occurred. This is why the people that were expelled from Spain immediately after the Moors were the Jews. Because after the Moors, the Jews were hated the most in Spain. And there was a great relationship between the Sephardic Jews and the Moors. The Moors controlled Europe, and the Sephardic Jews controlled the business. Together, they ruled Spain, and they ruled
Okay,
in
George.
peace
Thank you
from
for coming.
710 to 1492 with skirmishes. And of course, in the 1400s, you have the beginnings of what has been our unfolding from the beginning. You have little principalities fighting each other. And one of the ones that brought down Boabdil was that he was fighting his uncle. His uncle and even his mother didn't have much. They thought that he was in cahoots with with Ferdinand and Isabella. Didn't have too much respect for him, and there was infighting. And the infighting led to the destruction of the Moorish Empire, and that happens everywhere. Egypt, wherever we go in the world, they do not have the powers or the number to overtake us. They exploit us fighting each other, and that's been their history. They don't have the power. We give them the power. In fact, the more powerful they become is the more power that we give them. Because if we really analyze them for what they really were, we would know they are not what they pretend to be. But the Moors bringing in this civilization brought in concepts of an organized servitude that Europeans took advantage of, and they took Moorish organized servitude and superimposed it over unorganized slavery. And the end result was organized slavery. That's how they were able to write into law. See, they already had the framework in place. What they needed was organization. The Moors helped organize them. They became better, and I'm talking, they traded in their own people for hundreds of years before Africa. Yes, white slavery was it. Selling particularly their daughters. They would sell them all over the world. See, we don't know this because they are so focused on us in the newspaper nowadays. It seems like we are the ones that are so perverse and depraved. But the reality of it is that it began here. See, we don't have a history of this.
But when you say soul slave, how do you mean literally?
Literally.
Explain how.
If
Where they sold them to, and where did they
sold to Moorish princes, and you know, in many families, the wives and the children reportedly were so relieved when they were sold. They were better treated by Moors as servants than they were as wives to their European husbands.
Now, generally you've heard that the Arabs bought whites and sold them into
Yes.
all over Europe. But what would be the difference now between Arabs and Moors? Are we talking about the same people?
Well, we're talking about the same racial problem because Islam really broke along racial lines, which people don't like to talk about. The reason why Islam went the way it did was because when the Prophet Muhammad was transcending, a black man inherited Islam. And the lighter complexion Eurasians who had come into Islam were very offended. And so the split was along racial lines. It was not along, it was along who would inherit Islam, but it was along the lines of what culture would inherit Islam. And again, this is why we have to be careful. Because it's important to understand that in this part of the world, all up in here, today we call it Israel. Yesterday it was called Palestine, but the day before it was called Canaan. The Palestinians, who are Proto-Aryans mixed with Africans, traveling across this area, coming down into Israel, they murdered African Canaanites the same way Israel is treating them. It's important that when we look at the history of this, that much of and I'm not even going to say Islam because it's important to separate the faith from the people. Every Arab isn't a Muslim. It's important for us to know that. Arab doesn't mean a religion. It is a mixture of people. And Arab is equivalent to African American, to Puerto Rican, to Jamaican, to Haitian. What makes you what you are is the fact that you're mixed with something. That's what makes you an Arab. That's what makes you a Jew. A Jew is not a culture. A Jew is a faith system. It is a learned pattern of behavior that people learn to behave in a certain manner. The evidence that it is not a culture is that Muhammad Ali was born a Christian. He now is a Muslim. Sammy Davis Jr. was born a Christian. He became a Jew. Anything that you can change can't be culture. Culture is something that no matter what you do, you will be it no matter what. So that when you can change your religion, it's obvious that that's not your culture, that that is a learned pattern of behavior. You learn how to pray. Just like you learn how to say Christian prayers, you learn how to say Muslim prayers. You learn how to say Jewish prayers. Everything has its relationship according to the learned pattern of behavior. If you could change your pattern of behavior, it cannot be culture. So as we develop this philosophical underpinning, it's important that we be grounded in a common sense approach to this.
Okay.
I am a Muslim. I am a Jew. I am a Christian. And the reason why I am all of these is because I know there is a oneness of spirituality that comes out of an African reality. There is no, the two things that Professor Clark always told us, there are two things that black folk don't need. We don't need another religion, and we don't need another organization. And I support that concept in that I encourage us to become grounded in whatever we are, become grounded in the Africanity of what that is. So if you're a Democrat, look at your Africanity of being a Democrat. If you are a Christian, whatever organization or religion you belong to, believe me, it started in Africa. Ground yourself in that reality and then make your reactions to how you live be a part of that living reality. But there is nothing out here. Everything that is out here is still the same thing. It's your depth perception of what you're looking at. We are looking at a perceptual world of what Europeans have superimposed over us. What we have to do as a people is to go back to our rich tradition and begin to look at the world through our eyes. What I'm looking at right now will not change in terms of its structure, but what I receive from it will change because of my depth perception of what I'm looking at. Therefore, an African statue becomes far more than just an African statue when I know that when the knees are bent, it means that that statue is in motion, as opposed to it being the legs being still or straight. It means that it is standing still. It could even mean mummification. But with the African view towards that statue, it changes from a statue with bent knees to a statue that's in motion. European eye says it's bent knee. African perception says that that is a living, moving statue. Then you look at what the statue represents, and that's what is living and moving. We have to do this perception with everything that is around us, because everything that is around us we will never be able to react to as a European, because the first step is your perception of your senses, but the next is the images you create. Our images are different from their images. Our senses is different from their senses. When they superimpose, it is like what Dr. Sabi says, they transplant you. It's like taking a plant from Africa and putting it in the middle of Brooklyn. Brooklyn is a beautiful place, but that's not where that plant belongs. It belongs in Africa. The same way if you took a pine tree and put it in Uganda, a pine tree doesn't belong in Uganda. The nature of the climate creates a certain situation, and the organic family comes out of the same thing. So we are a transplanted people. We are a people who have been moved from our natural habitat into an unfamiliar habitat. We then act a certain way that they accuse us of being crabs in a basket. However, if you were to go back to the water where the crabs came from, you would notice they don't pull each other down. A crab in its natural surroundings acts like a crab should act. An African in his or her natural surroundings acts as an African should act. We act unnaturally because we are out of our natural environment. If we return back into our natural environment, if you go to Africa, you will not hear Africans calling their women bitch, or an African equivalent to that word. You will not hear African sisters calling that man down the block under the baobab tree my nigger, or a word equivalent to that kind of mindset, because in natural surroundings, they are who they should be. In this surroundings, unnatural to us, we are who we should not be. In fact, in acting the way we act, we are being very natural. If we acted any differently, it would be unnatural, because we're in unnatural surroundings. What we have got to do is ground ourselves in our Africanity and view the world from that perspective. when we look at the role that the Moors played, we clearly can see that another piece that comes out very interesting in this piece when he talks about the different civilizations is that Western civilization prides itself on being built on Aristotle's model of democracy. Of course, they don't tell you that in Aristotle's model of democracy, 85% of the population was enslaved, but they don't talk about that. He wrote slavery into his democracy. Who really had democracy were the ruling elders and the Senate and all the rest of that nonsense. They were the ones that were equal. Everybody else in Greece was slaves, but they don't talk about this. Aristotle's model, there were a number of philosophers, African philosophers. Again, you will find it in this book. Ibn Sina, who is known as Avicenna, and Ibn Rushd, who I believe is known as Averroes. These two philosophers and others, but these two, if I can point out, they were the ones that introduced Aristotle to Europe because Europeans couldn't read Greek. It was the African Moors with their wealth that traveled across the globe for centuries, collecting ancient Sanskrit or Indian writings, Kemetic writings. And there's a book by Thomas Goodwin and Rafiq Balal. It's called Egyptian Sacred Science and Al-Islam. That book itself is such a profound book. It just, what it does, it compares Kemetic legacy with Islam. And it will make comparisons like, for instance, with Hagar to Hathor or Heteru. It'll make comparisons between Ma'at in Islam, M-A''A'-D, with Ma'at in Kemetic legacy. It will make relationships with netures. Like, for instance, one thing I found out was about Rabs. Rabs in Islam are like the netures in ancient Egypt. They're like the Orishas. And this comes out of the African concept of the intermediary between God and humanity. The Rabs, of course, is where the word rabbi came from. Rabbi itself, of course, is meant to be, you have to understand, Ra-Ba. Rabbi, Ra-Ba. Ra being the energy of the sun and Ba being the spirit of breath. The Ra-Ba was the combination of both, which brought life, but encapsulated in the human, made you a divine person, which made you rabbi, which created the Rab. All coming out of the African tradition. This is our history. This is why I say when we look at the world through our tradition, if you're Muslim, stay Muslim. But just understand your Moorish impact. Understand that Islam came out of Africa, came out of the Moors, came out of the rich tradition of Africa. And if you want to, and forget about what I'm saying. What I encourage you to do, go back in history and look at life at the time we're talking about here. Look at life in the East, Persia, which was Iran, Iraq, coming down to Saudi Arabia. Read the book, by the way, The African Presence in Early Asia. Read the book, The African Presence in Early Europe, again by the dynamic scholar, Dr. Ivan Francesco, who brings essays together, which gives you a lot of perspectives towards a theme, which allows you to see it much larger in this perspective. I'm sure he could edit everybody's book, but because he makes essays, he gets right to the point. So all of his books in terms of the African presence all around the world, you'll see the relationship and how the Moors had to have been what brought the Renaissance in place, because it is here that bringing the knowledge of all around the world, Sanskrit, Mediterranean, ancient America, going into all sorts of parts of Africa, bringing this information here and then bringing it into Europe, developing the universities, and then it's spreading across the world. The Aristotle model of democracy was introduced by African people. So even the democracy, the conceptual democracy of Europe, because mind you, there's nothing but kings and queens in Europe. There's still kings and queens in Europe. In fact, we've lived to see the King of Spain in Europe. So there's still kings and queens. So where all of a sudden is democracy? And America, by the way, is not a true democracy. The fact that we have a president is the last throes that they just couldn't get rid of that king concept. So the president is there. If America was a true democracy, we'd be run by Congress. But because we have a president, that's the throwback to the Europeans' inability to get rid of the king.
Okay, so the Moors study and education of Europe at the time of
that I'd like to add about this, another thing that the Moors brought was a sewer system. In other words, when Europeans went to the bathroom, they went right there. They might have segregated themselves into a corner of the room, but they dug a little hole and they went to the bathroom there. When the Moors got there, they said, no man, you got to run that stuff out of your house. So what they did is they started the sewer system that would run drainage through the house down into a segregated area of the community, that all of the waste, all of the garbage, everything was channeled down in that area so that it was not within the compound. So think of the structure of the mind of the African, understanding, okay, you put animals in corrals and coops, you put your waste in a sewer system, you have hot and cold running water. They had air conditioning in Europe. By the way in which they built their house, they understood waves and the way in which the earth was structured, so that, you know, there are some places in a house that you go that you might say, I always go in there because a cool breeze runs through there. Well, the reason why is that if you had studied the way in which where your house was built, you would know that by the nature of your surrounding environment, a cool wind passes through a certain way. If you open up one window and a door, the wind will go at a particular time. The Moors understood this direction, and that's what air conditioning was. We're not talking about the air conditioning necessarily in the kind of boxes that come out of us. That's artificial air. What they developed was a natural cool air. They would, in fact, build fans and shutters, so that the wind would blow. The same way a sail will go, the wind would go. They would build it in the house so that you could just be in a house that was totally air conditioned. And there was a number of things they could do, but I wanted to add that because this adds a fundamental thinking process, and this is what Professor Clark was so helpful to developing me, is the common sense approach to this. Because when you're dealing with someone whose life is meant to confuse you, you need someone who can set you straight. And Professor Clark's approach towards teaching gave you a philosophical underpinning. It grounded you in why you needed to know this, what you could do with what you knew, and what would happen after you knew it. As a people, we have got to get a philosophical underpinning to our nation. That philosophical underpinning should be the Moors. I encourage my brothers and sisters in Islam, whether it be the Nation of Islam, whether it be the Islamic movement of our brother Dean Warith Muhammad, whatever Muslim you are, I challenge African people to study that language and to begin to look at some of the documents and to translate them. Because you will find that many of the translations are going to be the kinds of translations that will be equivalent to the Shabaka stone. They will tell certain things on a metaphoric level that we have not yet come to grips with. So I'm encouraging, there is a lot of things that we can do to make this better. But let's go back to the Christian church and let's go back to women, because it's interesting that that is one of the problems that the Eurasian Islams had with the original African Muslims. And that was the treatment of women. In Al-Andalusia, Al meaning spiritual, Andar in Spanish meaning light, luz is light. So what they were saying was that Al-Andalusia, they were going to build a nation that walked in a spiritual light. That's what this nation was meant to be. And here, women were free. There are documents showing the jobs that women held equivalent to men. It showed the monies they received, the compensation they received equivalent to men. Women owned land. Women had title. The Moorish women had every right that the man had. They were leaders. They were warriors. The problem that the Eurasian Muslims had was that they couldn't get rid of their control and containment of their women. That was a very serious philosophical point that Muslims had, and another reason why there's such a schism within the nation, according to how the women are treated. So, and then of course the Catholic Church having almost having a totally negative feeling towards the woman, building her to be the cornerstone to the fall of man. I could never understand that. I could never understand a sister talking a man into doing something and the woman get punished because the man is weak. If I were God, I would have busted the man. And I would have given a lot of respect for the sister for having the ability to persuade. And I would want to bring her on my side since she had the power of persuasion and the man was nothing but a follower. So even in the story itself, it blames someone but it makes the person that's exonerated weak. And it rewards the weak and it punishes the strong. That sounds like a fairy tale to me. It is a story that the Moors couldn't accept. Another problem that the Moors had with Christians and their Eurasian Muslim brothers and sisters was that the Moors didn't have faith in God. They didn't have a belief in God. They knew God existed. To have a faith system puts you on that precarious tightrope that if swayed either way, you could lose. Africans would never have lost faith in God because they knew God existed. You only lose faith when you don't trust that something is going on. So when the Moor would present himself to God, they knew that, well, in fact, they called it adoptionism. Adoptionism was the concept of this supernatural, extraordinary human being that by the nature of her relationship with nature, not only knew God, but came to realize, become conscious that they were God. And they acted like gods. And if you define your God to be the master and the mistress of the universe, God acts a certain way. That's how they treated each other. They said, and this is in the book by Stanley Lane Poole, he said that when the Moors were driven from Spain, Europe has never been the same. That if the Moors had been allowed, let's just say somehow or other, Ferdinand and Isabella, instead of attacking the Moors, had somehow of a working relationship that they decided, okay, but let's just work together. This world would be totally different. If, instead of destroying the Moors, they made the Moors a major part, they would have been able to develop a civilization that today doesn't exist. Why? Because it is recorded through Dr. Van Sertima's work that after 1492, and in coming to this part of the world, that there was a bishop by the name of Landa who burnt thousands upon thousands of Native American codices. Codices are equivalent to Egyptian papyri. Papyri is the plural, codice is the plural for Native American. Codex is the singular, papyrus is the singular. So one codex is one, let's call it a book or a script. Bishop Landa, out of the Catholic philosophy, burned thousands of books that had been written by Native American peoples on health, nutrition, science of all kinds, mathematics, the Maya, the Olmec, all of these civilizations that brought all this wisdom together. Again, from Dr. Van Sertima's work, looking at the role Africa played in this area and the coming together of these two people. Bishop Landa destroyed the works of the Native Americans in the West, while Bishop Cisneros was destroying the Moorish texts. There was a day that in Granada they took over 300,000, and again, I'm afraid of numbers because it could be much more than this, it could be less, but it could be more, texts, and they put it in the middle of the court, and they put all of the texts on fire because they said they were books of the devil because they were written in Arabic and they were probably Qurans. Burned them, and today they celebrate the day of the bonfire. And that's what they're celebrating when they celebrate the day of the bonfire. This is celebrated in many Spanish-speaking countries today, but we don't know this. We don't understand our culture and our history. We celebrate the destruction of wisdom and knowledge, not realizing that it's probably why we have cancer today. Because chances are, had those texts been preserved, many important medical documents probably would have saved a lot of lives today. So the relationship that they had in terms of wisdom and knowledge is deeply in the tradition of Europe. The Catholic Church, in destroying the works in the East and in the West, destroyed what would bring forward civilization. And today we have their inability to decipher information. And so now we have nuclear fission instead of fusion. Nothing wrong with fission in its place. But fission takes the uranium atom and it splits it. And it contains these split atoms contained in a particular area. And if detonated all at one time, this fission creates a mighty explosion. What I just told you is written in the Muslim text that dates back in the thousands, 1,000 years ago. In other words, Africans understood the nuclear bomb. They understood the power of nuclear fission. But they also had a great respect for nuclear fusion. Fission is when you separate the nucleuses. Fusion is when you fuse them together. And this is why the study of the sun has to become priority in our life, so that we can begin to develop the kind of civilization built on an energy level that only the sun can bring to us. The Moors were aware of this. It is in their documents. So this is not something that we're all dreaming of. This is things written. This is where those that can understand the Arabic language would be able to decipher and translate some very important documents. The Catholic Church rising up through this time in the 1500s and the 1600s, you can see what's going on, because look at what happens. You have the splitting of the world in half. It's called the Treaty of Tordesillas. Dr. Leonard Jeffrey says this is one of the turning points in European history. What this does, it literally cuts the world in half. Gives the east to Portugal and gives the west to Spain. However, what they didn't tell you is that Christopher Columbus was a double agent for the Portuguese. Because remember, Christopher Columbus is married to Portuguese royalty. He is involved with the Portuguese long before he's ever involved with the Spanish. It is upon this mark that Brazil speaks Portuguese today, was because the Treaty of Tordesillas, the line of demarcation, cut it so that the largest part of South America would go to Portugal. And the west, Florida and California, Los Angeles, and all these other areas would go to the Spanish. But now you have other world powers coming on the scene, like England. And England says, well, who is this Pope that he can split the world in half and give half to Portugal and half to Spain? What about us? Germany says, what about us? France says, what about us? And so what happens is that there starts to be a war amongst the Europeans for the spoils of what the Moors introduced. The reason why Portugal, you hear this story about Prince Henry the Navigator, that's such nonsense. There are boats in the pyramids of Khufu that are larger than Prince Henry's boats of Portugal. Where did he learn how to get on the waters? He learned from the Moors. Why isn't Portugal and Spain the countries of Europe that are moving out of the Dark Ages first? What is it happening here that's not happening every other place? The Moors. See, this is how you can tell civilization. Why didn't they do this before 710 and 711? Why was it only when Africans came up that you start the literacy of Europe? You start the building of different buildings in Europe. You have warfare on a level of guns going on. You have a number of different things. The foods are different. The foods are changing. Why is this happening? Why didn't it happen before? It's not happening before because it wasn't introduced. The Moors were not there. It was they who brought this in. These individuals get mad, and then pretty soon they go to war. Now, Prince Henry, this story comes down to us that he broke away from the church because of the selling, and Calvin breaking away from the church, creating the Protestant movement. It had nothing to do with the so-called, days of grace, that giving church money would give you abstinence. It had to do with the fact.
Mazda? Once you discover the Mazda CX-90, Mazda? It doesn't take...
Would give you abstinence. It had to do with the fact that the only way that they could take away the power of the only way they could get land that the Spanish and the Portuguese got was to take away the power of the Pope. Because if the Pope is not your leader, he can't tell you what is and is not yours. Therefore, England, France, Germany, all in the guise of religion, break away from the church to undermine the power of the Pope so they can go to war with Spain and Portugal to take back land. And that's what begins to happen. And one of the next great power comes France. The great power I'm talking about. France with Napoleon. Now what brings him up? He gets into Egypt. He gets into Kemet in 1797. Napoleon III, the so-called Great Napoleon. And it is here that he brings his intelligentsia that studies Egypt and is able then to bring what we know as the modern world into place. England says there's no way we're going to let France get away with that. So England, Wellington, then goes after Napoleon at Waterloo. When he beats France, the first thing he wants is Egypt. Why? Because he wants the knowledge of Egypt. And then we move into the 1900s with so-called Lord Carnarvon in Egypt, unleashing secrets, and then you have the Industrial Revolution. Not only Industrial Revolution, you have America in geometric progression going into a civilization that they themselves have absolutely no reason to be in because they don't have the background information to be there. You cannot get to the Iron Age without going through copper and bronze. You can't get to trigonometry without first going through algebra and geometry. It appears that Europe overnight has been by God given all this information. And they were given this information by God. The Moors gave them this information. And the Moors at this time in history were their gods. They won't admit it now, but this is the truth. With enough investigation, you'll find that Morocco played a very strong role in the development of the Constitution of the United States and what we today know as America. Moroccan government had a lot to do with the information that America received along with the acceptance of America as a nation. So there's an ongoing role between the Moors and America, not to mention, of course, the work that Dr. Bay is doing, Dr. Jose Pimento Bay, in the relationship of the Moors and Native American peoples. It would be so obvious that if you have this great civilization going on at 710, going up to 1492, it would only be natural that between this time period, 710 AD to approximately 1492, that you have the great nations of Ghana, Mali, and Songhai, and that they themselves, under Abu Bakari II, as Dr. Van Scherven says, and they came before Columbus, coming to America. There's no reason why some of those Moorish heads could not be, the Olmec heads. There's no reason why some of them could not be Moorish heads. There's no reason why there could not have been Moorish civilizations in America that would have led to the darkening of the Native American peoples, along with all of the other nations of color that were embedded in America. So it is not, from my perspective, unnatural that we would see such a lively relationship between Africans and the Americas and China. There's evidence of Africans bringing elephants into China. But if you're bringing elephants into China, what kind of boats must you have? What kind of technology that would allow you to bring elephants? You don't do that on no canoe. So they would have to have had high-powered wisdom. Not only that, but you've got to know that if you have a certain amount of weight, how you're going to travel on the water. So they must have had great navigational skills to know how to bring elephants from Africa to China. So all of this knowledge is here, but because they have dwarfed us and superimposed this concept of white supremacy on us, we don't know how great we were in history. So now we fight and we struggle and we go here and we go there to be accepted in a college, that some of these individuals from Cambridge and Oxford came to the United States and decided that they were going to create King's College. The same people who studied at the Moors brought the information that they had developed in England, that the Moors had taught them, to the United States and created in New York King's College. Today we call it Columbia University. Columbia University's wisdom and knowledge is based in the wisdom and knowledge of African thought.
Let me ask you though, how were they able to defeat the Moors, and what kind of fighting and atrocities were perpetrated on the Moors? I saw you read the book.
Okay. Let's just look, and you see, again, we have to look at the Inquisition, and we have to understand exactly what it was that was going on in terms of the Inquisition.
Yeah.
Okay, the Inquisition, more or less, is basically, this is a book called Spain, A Land Blighted by Religion. Please allow me to read, just so you can understand. Joseph Lewis, this is what he's saying. In my travels through Spain, I saw many buildings that were used as inquisitorial chambers. In Seville, I saw the crucifix, which hung in the building of the Inquisition, presided over by Torquemada, Torque, Torquemada. In Valladolid, I saw the Palace of Justice, which was afterwards used as an inquisitorial chamber, where Isabella and Ferdinand were married, and under whose regime the Inquisition was started. I visited the cells and saw many of the dungeons of this building. In Madrid, I visited the public square where the officials of the church and estate assembled to celebrate the reading of the sentences of the auto da fe to the victims before being burnt at the stake. However, here in Barcelona is the only building that I found in Spain that bears the official seal of the Inquisition. In this building, helpless men and women whose only crime was that they did not believe exactly as the church wanted them to believe. We're talking about the Moors. See, this whole concept of not believing were them trying to get the Africans to take on Christianity, something that the Moors never did to the Christians, by the way. They were tortured with instruments invented by the perverted ingenuity of man to produce the most excruciating pain and torment. These tortures consisted of the breaking of the victim's bone upon the wheel and rack, you know, that thing that stretched you, the application of the thumb screw and the leg crusher, the branding of the flesh with red-hot irons, the tearing of the body with pincers of steel. Eyes were blinded, fingers cut off, and tongues ripped out. Some were submerged in waters, others were beaten and racked beyond recognition. All this was done to make them confess to the crime of heresy, which, by the way, is a precursor to burning women at the stake, witch hunting. That is, to the unbelief in the religion of those who were torturing them, that they might be taken to the public square and roasted to death. During the period of the Inquisition, nearly 300 years, it has been reliably estimated that more than 1 million victims, and I'll add the word Moors, were roasted to death, tortured, and killed. One of my purposes in traveling through Europe was to gather together as many as possible of the instruments of torture that were used during the Inquisition, and establish in the United States a museum of these religious articles that may serve as an object lesson to man, that he should bear charitably and tolerantly with his fellow man upon the question of religion, and that such a hateful institution as the Inquisition shall never again exist upon this earth. This is white supremacy. This that we just talked about is what we went through here in America.
Maybe you could, I just want you to segue that into, after the Inquisition, Portugal, which was already in Africa, but the slave trade begins, and it is the same army on a war footing, or these same people on a war footing, who comes to Africa. I want you to kind of give us your insight and understanding to these two cultures clashing.
Okay.
And how they would ultimately end up with us in Ireland.
Well, fundamentally, what you have is what Francis Cresswellson calls genetic annihilation. They understand that the clock is ticking. Even in 1492, they understood this. And they understood that if they allowed the Moors to continue to be in power, that in fact, they would physically, mentally, and spiritually be taken off of the planet. And that their birth would never occur again unless Africans moved into the Ice Age. That's the first thing that they understood. They understood that they did not have the wherewithal to be able to survive and to create a civilization. So they, like parasites, like fleas, attached themselves to the host, sucking the nature of the host from it. What occurred, as always occurs, the only way that Castile and Aragon could defeat the Moors was the same reason why they could not defeat them before. Because the Moors were organized and Castile and Aragon were mortal enemies. When Castile and Aragon, Ferdinand and Isabella only got married to unite the two kingdoms, east and west, to go after the Moors and chase them out. The Moors fought amongst themselves. As an African people, in my research of us as a people, before you see our destruction in whatever phase, whether it be Egypt, whether it be the Moors, whether it be us in America, even to this very day, if you see our destruction, if you take 2 steps back, we're fighting amongst ourselves. they don't have the power and the ability to do what they have to do. They must depend on us fighting each other, which weakens both of our factions, and they come together whether they like it or not. They hate each other, but they understand the need to come together as one, and then to separate us into two, so that their one is in fact a majority over our two, although our two combined dwarfs them in terms of numbers. But with us split apart, they can do battle with both factions because we both have two enemies. We have them and us. They only have one enemy, and that's us collective. But they got help. They got allies on both sides because we helping them, and our brothers and sisters are helping them by us fighting each other. If we got to the point where no matter what we felt towards each other, that we had unconditional love for a nation to be built, we would be free yesterday. It is only the Willie Lynch syndrome, as Minister Louis Farrakhan points out, that keeps us in the position that we're in. Because once we come together, it's over.
Now, they come after the Inquisition.
Yes.
They come down into Africa.
Well, the Inquisition is going on. The Inquisition is going on simultaneously. And what's also happening during
Thanks
the
for the
Inquisition
hearts.
is
I
that
appreciate it.
they are moving Moors off of the land. See, this is another thing that we have to be aware of in terms of our history. Many of the original people coming to this part of the world were Moors, particularly those in the Spanish-speaking islands. In fact, in Puerto Rico, they have a celebration during the third week of July that they call the celebration. Well, they have three, but in July, it's called. It's dedicated to Juan the Apostle, John the Apostle, and basically they celebrate Vejigante. Vejigante is the Moor, but syncretism is like Santeria. Syncretism is like when we mask our true feelings, but we celebrate a white thing. It's like when you look at Santeria, it is based in the Christian faith, but it has African undertones to it. Well, the same is true when you come to this part of the world and the Vejigante. The Vejigante is supposed to be the Moor who goes around to the town and scares the children and the people. But the real thing was that the Moors weren't the ones going around scaring the people. It was a European that went around scaring the people. But for Africans to celebrate that in Puerto Rico, they could not make the European the evil one, so they made themselves the evil one, but they really were the metaphor for the white man. That's why they paint their face white, and they paint their face in different flavor, so that it creates a syncretism. It's a hidden message underneath what they're actually saying. So there's evidence of the Moors in the Caribbean, in their celebrations. And that's particularly in Puerto Rico, but it also is in the Spanish-speaking island. The first Moors were, in fact, the ones exiled off their land and brought to the Caribbean. That was part of the Inquisition, along with stealing all of the gold and all of the buildings and all of the other things that belonged. They weren't really trying to make people into Christians because they just wanted to kill these black people. They just used religion because a lot of the Moors were already Christians. There were Moorish Christians here too. Moor doesn't mean you're a Muslim. Moor is an African. It means you were black. But there were Moorish Christians, there were Moorish Jews, and there were Moorish Muslims. Of course, the great majority were Muslims. But during the Inquisition, they steal the land, which gives the monetary ability for Columbus to get on the waters, and for Spain to come to this part of the world, and for Portugal to come to this part of the world. You see that the money they used was
Hey,
coming out of the
Levi, yeah.
Inquisition. They were going to steal it anyway. Whether you became a Muslim, Christian or not, they were going to kill you and take your stuff. They just used religion as that piece. You know, like the martyrs. The book points out there were no martyrs. In fact, the Moors used to tell the Christians, look, we don't want to kill you. The Christians, some of them committed suicide, and other Christians said that the Muslims had killed them and made them into martyrs. Where does the word martyr come from? Anytime you see mar, any of that comes from the Moors. The first martyrs in Europe were the Moors. The word martyr comes out of Moor. But see, they don't say this. You know, when you have Joan of Arc and all of these other martyrs, people who died. Well, the first three martyrs of the Christian church were African. The first martyrs of the church were Africans. The first Christian church was African. So it is not far from the fact that martyr became Moor. So there's no problem in seeing the relationship linguistically to martyr and moor. And it's important that the monies that were taken from the Inquisition that led to exploration, what occurred in Europe was, well, let me put it to you this way. The ancestors to multinational corporations are the pirates. Remember, the governments give charters to businesses that come and do all their work. The governments didn't do that. The businesses did that. Slavery was a business. It wasn't a political entity. It served political purposes, but it wasn't a political entity. These were businesses. When you're dealing with these pirates, Sir Walter Raleigh and all these people, these are the ancestors of big business. These are the ones that start challenge. This is where they get their money from, in terms of, because what Europe is looking for is drugs. They're looking for sugar.
Drugs.
Sugar. Sugar was the first drug. Europeans got hooked on sugar. Moors brought sugar into Europe. So what happened was, because you see, you can't grow sugar in Europe because sugar needs a tropical climate. Sugar cane, you see? So what is happening is that sugar and sweets are being brought here. These Europeans never ate this before. They never had food that had the spices and things for the food. So what happens is that they get hooked on sugar, but they can't get enough of it. So they decide to go, see, cotton didn't get us in trouble. Sugar did. That's the first product of the slave trade, was sugar. So what happens is a lively trade occurs here. But
No. It was taken down here.
okay, so it's
It stopped before when I changed tapes. I forgot to cut this back on.
okay.
Okay, but it was taken down here, so we got it down.
I used to love to find them sugar canes and eat them.
The key to remember here is that the agricultural ma'afa, enslavement period, or life down here, built astronomically the industries and factories of the North. Free labor. But what happens is that in an industrial revolution, for instance, when you begin, what might have taken you an hour to make one pair of shoes, you now can make 300 pairs of shoes. Let's just throw that out. Even if it was 5. What's happening is that industry is growing at geometric progression while capitalism grows arithmetically. In other words, arithmetic means 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Geometric means 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, down the line. What was happening was that agriculture was slowing up industry. And the North said to the South, we are in an industrial mode, which means that in an industrial mode, we have to create a capitalism. Everybody has to be able to vie for the top. There has to be very strong competition in order for it to, we'll strangle ourselves. We'll drown in our own situation if we don't expand. The holding of African people must stop. See, they did not see where this was heading. They had no conceptualization of being able to do 200 shoes in a way that you would only have been able to have the time to do one. So they didn't see this happening, so therefore when it came, it surprised them, and they began to choke. So what they said is that you all have to stop this enslavement. You can't have slavery because if you have free labor, the whites, the poor whites, will not have an incentive to move up because people in business will have free labor. So why pay somebody when you can have it done free? Okay? The South said to the North, look, it's because of us that you even have that, so you need to be quiet. See, the South could have lived on its own. The North couldn't. The North needed agriculture. Agriculture didn't need industry because they still could do what they needed to do down south. But down north, if you don't have the product, you can't make the thing. If you have the product, you might just do it, but you do it slower. So the South had the advantage, and they knew it. And they said, no, we're not going to get rid of our enslavement. That's what made us who we are. You're asking us to do something you had slaves just up until a couple of years ago. You only cut it loose because you're industrial now. But you don't like them any more than we do. And they said, no, we don't like them any more than you do, but that's not the point. For industry to be able to survive, you've got to stop slavery. That is a principle in capitalism. Everyone has to.
No signal in the countryside. Lights offline mode. Helps you plan ahead.
said, well, what are we going to do? By the way, welfare was one of the answers to what they did. But they said, well, what we're going to do is that we're just going to free African people. And then South said, no, you're not going to free them. North said, yes, you are. South said, no, we are. North said, yes, you are. South said, we're going to secede. North said, no, you're not. South said, yes, we are. North said, let's go to war. That's the Civil War. It had nothing to do with freeing us. They didn't have any love for us to free us. They freed us because industry couldn't have existed with slavery in place.
I'm not quite sure that I understand that. You're talking about people wouldn't buy the products, and then they would be making a lot of products and could sell them. Why couldn't they sell them to Europe, to England, create other markets, other places?
Because the fuel of the Industrial Revolution itself was the individual competing with other individuals. That's the image of the philosophy of capitalism. It's dog eat dog, and everybody's climbing up to that apex of the pyramid. That's capitalism. It allows anybody to be able to rise up in the society if you have the right ideas. Slavery, or the enslavement of a human being, like what's happening in America today. They're going to foreign places because they can get cheaper labor than they can get here.
Right.
If you could get free labor, even Hong Kong would be too expensive. So it breaks down capitalism. That's what's happening here in America. What's happening now is that there are corporations that are willing to let America fall because they're on an international level now. They can survive because they're international now. Before, they were just locally involved in this hemisphere. The world has become their employment opportunity now. But in a capitalist system, you cannot have free labor. You have to have the concept of competition. Someone is not going to hire somebody, like for instance, if you have a farm and you say to your workers, if you know you can sell, let's say, 200 ears of corn for a great price, you'll say, the first person that brings me 200 ears of corn is going to get a bonus. Okay? If you say to somebody, whether or not you pull this, you're not going to get nothing extra, the incentive to be quick isn't there.
Right.
As a slave state, if you are in a position of working for free, there is no momentum for you to compete. Therefore, everything is going to keep going this way while industry is moving very quickly, but you're still moving this way. It will suffocate industry, and there will be an implosion in the civilization. The first evidence of that implosion was the stock market crash. You see, now again, look at the history that we've come. We've come from Egypt to Greece to Rome to the Catholic Church to the barbarians of the Visigoths to the Moors to Columbus to the Caribbean to America to big business to the American Revolution to the Civil War to Reconstruction to the Civil Rights Movement to where we are today. And it can be traced back, and in history, this is why Professor Clark said that history was the clock that people used to tell their political time of day, and it was a compass that they found themselves on the map of human geography, because history will ground you. And you can see yourself, and if you can see what got you into this position, you can see what can get you out. Because all you have to do is go back to the last step where you stepped off of Ma'at, and the first step is to unite together.
In closing, in the few minutes that we have, we talked on the way down about sun and agriculture and the
UNITY.
sun having to do
That's
with
a unity.
way out. Yes. We need a way out.
Absolutely.
Let's
Absolutely.
close with that.
I
Close on a high note.
Absolutely. Well, you know, the high note is here. Freedom is not at hand. It is not in hand.
Thanks for
It
the
is a
hard job.
process.
Thank all y'all
I'm
for
very
coming. I appreciate it.
optimistic about our future, but I'm very realistic about what we
We're
face
forever
towards
learning.
the future.
Hopefully
I'm
we
not
can change
looking all
everything one
gloriously
day.
and seeing great things. We have, as Dr. King said, we have difficult days ahead, but what the centerpiece to civilization, and I go back to a book called Hyperspace by a Japanese brother by the name of Michio Kaku, who has a radio program on WBAI, and he also is, I believe, a professor at City College of New York. To use part of his work that he writes in Hyperspace, he breaks civilizations down into 4 parts. And he says that civilization is based on where you receive your energy. In other words, energy gives a civilization the ability to build a technology. whether it be a pyramid technology, a temple technology, a computer technology, whatever it is, it relies on the energy source. So he says that a zero civilization is a civilization who gets its energy from the earth, water, air, or wind, batteries. Everything is earth. Petroleum, which is oil in the ground, fossil fuels. He says that a type 1 civilization is a civilization that derives its power from the sun. Therefore, things that motivate your society, in other words,
Type 2.
I'm sorry?
Type 2 from the sun?
No, type 1. Type 0 is earth, type 1 is sun.
All right.
Because he believes 0, and I believe 0 is just the beginnings. It would be to the Dogon called Jiriso, the word on the front. Okay, it's just that basic earth. You're drawing your power, your energy from the earth. The type 1 civilization draws it from the sun. So therefore, if you have a solar dish where you can get your light, your heat, your computer run, your television cameras, your televisions, whatever it is, runs on solar, then you have an inexhaustible source of energy that you can fuel your life by this energy. Not only physically, but mentally and spiritually too. You will become a sun person. Okay, so we're not just talking about the physical manifestations, but the mental and spiritual manifestations of this same energy. Because we all are, by the way, pieces of the sun encapsulated in this temple. The type 2 civilization, after you got aware of the earth, you became so aware of the earth, you then tapped into the sun, our sun, Ra. Then, after tapping into the sun, our sun becomes like a satellite. Just like when you want to watch a show in, let's say, Africa, you don't have a beam that can take you directly to Africa, so you have a satellite. A satellite that will send a message from where you are to the satellite, and then the satellite down to where you're going on the earth. Even if you're going on the other side of the earth, you need to send that message to another satellite that will then send it to that part of the earth. But a satellite will do it. The Kemites believed, ancient civilizations believed, that you could use the sun as a similar satellite. That in fact, the type 2 civilization was where you derived your power from the galaxy, the Milky Way galaxy. In other words, you use the sun as a satellite to draw other powers from the billions and billions of stars of our entire Milky Way galaxy. Imagine that kind of energy that you could have. For me, the evidence of that power rests in the sarcophagi of King Tut, that in fact Africans were on a type 2 civilization by some of the pictographs of the relationship of stars to human beings. It's obvious that they knew something. Also, the Dogon clearly talk about a galactic power that they were able to derive. But now the final type of civilization, a type 3, remembering the satellitic kind of power, is that the earth and the human uses itself as the energy. Then the type 1 is the human uses itself to get the solar power. Then the type 2 civilization is that the human uses the sun, and the sun is the satellite that draws galactic power from billions.
They would cut it off. That's part 1. They would cut it off.
Assalamu alaikum. Are you thinking about buying a...
Okay. I wanted to go back because he was talking about the Germans. If y'all was from the beginning, he was talking about the Germans coming from the Ice Age. And blonde hair, blue eyes. Back in Moses' time, the people who disobeyed, remember Miriam, Moses' brother, Aaron's wife, disrespected Moses' wife, the Ethiopian, and the God punished her by giving her leprosy. And the ones who had leprosy were shunned from the camp and a lot of them lived in cages. And it was another incident in the Bible. Let me see. Let me pull it up. What is the stories of leprosy in the Bible? Luke 17:12-24 describes a moment when two men who had leprosy came and met Jesus asking for healing, which Jesus provided. Matthew 10:8 quotes Jesus, who said, "Heal the sick, raise the dead, cleanse those who have leprosy, drive out demons." Okay, so I'm gonna put that. Luke 17:23 and okay, Matthew 10:8. But it was also in Moses. So let's see. Go away. Moses in the Old Testament and leprosy. Traditionally, leprosy is the punishment for speaking slander. Lashon Hara, and Moses was so punished because he stated that the Israelites and their leaders would not believe what God had said. Okay, that's when he got punished. Okay, punishment for speaking slander. Oh, when he put his hand inside. I don't know. Why would you say that about? I didn't say about Moses. Moses is cured of leprosy. Okay. Let's see. Oh, when he came down from the mountain. I don't know. What is this? Okay, got it. As Moses encountered from the burning bush, God charged him to be his messenger in emancipating the Israelites from Egypt. Moses questioned, "What if they do not believe me, do not listen to me, but say the Lord did not appear to me?" Exodus 4:1. God provided Moses with three signs that they may believe that the Lord, the God of their fathers, the God of Abraham and Isaac, Jacob, did to you. The first was turning Moses' rod into a snake. The third was turning water from the Nile into blood. For the second sign, Moses was told, "Put your hand into your bosom." He put his hand into his bosom, and when he took it out, his hand was encrusted with snowy scales. Exodus 4:6. But when he put his hand back in and out of his bosom, there was again like the rest of his body. Miraculously, Moses' hand was restored to normal. In fact, Moses did display these signs to the Israelites, Exodus 4:30, and used the first and the third to demonstrate the power of God to spectacle Egyptians as well. Exodus 7:8. What is the significance of the second feat, and why was it the only sign not performed later for the Egyptians? Exodus Rabbi 3:17 explains that the second sign was meant to chastise Moses. Traditionally, leprosy is the punishment for speaking slander, and Moses was so punished because he stated that the Israelites and their leaders would not believe what God had said. The first sign, also understood in the Midrash to be chastising Moses for the same transgressions. As the rod turned into a snake was intended to recall the serpent in the Garden of Eden, who also sinned through his speech. Based on this, Midrash, whatever, at least Kahtov, here notes that the first two signs were really directed at Moses personally, and the only third sign, water turning to blood, was meant as a sign to be shown publicly in case Moses was not believed. If we refer to extra biblical literature, we can further understand the reference to Moses' leprosy. Manetho, 300 BC, was an Egyptian historian. In history, Aegyptiaca was researched and written at the request of Pharaoh Ptolemy as a record of all pharaohs and as a history of Egypt. Josephus, the Jewish historian, 37 through 100 CE, had access to the text and quoted intensively from it, but it is no longer available in its original form. Josephus quotes Manetho in his work. Wait a minute, I'm trying to see. Blah, blah, blah. Oh, okay. Pharaoh Amenophis is counseled to purge Egypt of all lepers and other polluted persons. The affected Egyptians, 80,000 in total, are rounded up and sent to work in stone quarries. They are also moved into the abandoned city Aras, Avaris, thus effectively keeping them quarantined. A renegade Egyptian priest, Oscar Osarsph, from Helipus, became the leader of the slaves. Manoah described him as leprous. He commanded the slaves not to worship Egyptian gods, nor to refrain from eating and sacrificing animals sacrificed to the Egyptians, and to have intercourse only with their own people, among other laws. He noted that Josephus changed his name to Moses upon joining with the slaves. The slaves rose up and rummaged throughout Egypt, burning cities, plundering temples, and destroying images of Egyptian gods. Now, I don't know. I ain't never heard that before. This report is generally considered an example of Egyptian hostility towards Jews and their culture, and this is how Josephus relates to it. He goes on to discredit it as it is based on invented stories and rumors. Classifying Moses as an Egyptian priest is not as outrageous as one might think at first glance. Egyptian priests were appointed by Pharaoh and frequently were members of the royal family. The Egyptian priesthood was a center of learning and a repository of knowledge. The priests were knowledgeable in many subjects, including geometry, astronomy, psychology, and mathematics. Philosophy, my fault. Three of the temples, Heliopolis, Heliopolis, and Memphis, were academics, elite institutions. Recalling that Moses was an adopted son of Egyptian princes, Moses would have been readily qualified to be a member of the academy. It is possible that it was in this intellectual environment that Moses spent many of his years not accounted for in the Bible. Similarly, the idea that Moses had an Egyptian name is not unusual, as the Bible credits Pharaoh's daughter with naming Moses in Exodus 2:10. Okay, now how do you say he changed his name from it's supposed to be as a baby, right? So how do they get that when they just said that at the top? No, they did. Okay, well maybe this is another person upon joining the slave. Okay. Daughter would name him Moses in Exodus 2:10. Many years later, Joseph was given the name Zaphenath by Pharaoh and was given in marriage to his daughter, priest of On, Genesis 41:45. What about the leprosy element which is such a prominent element of the Mano account. Leprosy as such was not reported in Egypt until the Greek period, but the identification of the biblical Tzarat with leprosy is inaccurate. It would be more correct to identify it with skin disease or in general. A potent strand in Egyptian literature fastens blame for evils suffered by populace on the impure and the disease. There is some evidence that in Egypt, individuals with severe skin conditions were generally considered excluded from the afterlife. In light of this, the sign of Moses being healed from a skin disease may contain a message that while the Egyptians treat the Israelites as a source of trouble, the sign of Moses being healed from the skin disease may contain a message that while the Egyptians treated the Israelites as a source of trouble, Exodus 1 through 10. In fact, the Israelites are pure and blameless. In this sense, the sign is meant to inspire the Israelites to reject the status accorded to them by the Egyptians as a step towards emancipation. Later, in Exodus 14:12, we find Israelites complaining that it would be better for us to serve the Egyptians. The slave mentality was not easily eradicated. Based on this, we can understand why a version of this sign was never used for Egyptians, as it was meant only as an internal Israelite wonder, with the uplifting message that they rise above any sort of perceived impurity. I'm more confused than ever now. Okay, let me find another one. So it makes you think, how did they? Now, if everybody was black and they discredit the Israelites, so how did they know that they were Israelites to treat them differently? What is the law of Moses for leprosy? So he shall make atonement for the house, and it will be clean. This is the law of any mark of leprosy, even for a scale. 55 and the leprous garment or house. 56 and for a swelling, and for a scab, and for a bright spot on the skin. 57 to teach when they are unclean and when they are clean. Leviticus 14. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, This shall be the law of leper on the day of this ceremonial cleansing. He shall be brought to the priest at a meeting place outside the camp. The priest shall go out of the camp to meet him, and the priest shall examine him, and the leper has been healed of the infection of leprosy. Then the priest shall give orders to take 2 live clean birds and cedar wood and scarlet string and hyssop for the one to be cleansed. Next, the priest shall order that one of the birds be killed as sacrifice in an earthenware container over flesh, running water. As for the live bird, he shall take it together with the cedar wood and the scarlet string and hyssop, and shall dip them and the bird in the blood of the bird's sacrifice over the running water. He shall sprinkle the blood 7 times on the one to be cleansed from the leprosy, and shall pronounce him ceremonially clean. Then he shall let the live bird go free over the open field. The one to be cleansed shall wash his clothes, shave off all his hair, and bathe in water, and he shall be clean. After that he may come into the camp, but he shall stay outside of his tent for 7 days. On the 7 days he shall shave off all his hair. He shall shave his head and his beard and his eyebrows, even all his hair on his body. Then he shall wash his clothes and bathe his body in water and be clean. Now on the 8th day he shall take 2 male lambs without blemish, and a yearling UEWE lamb without blemish, and 3 tens of an ephah of fine flour mixed with olive oil as a grain offering, and 1 log, about a pint, of oil. And the priest who cleanses him shall present the man to be cleansed and his offering before the Lord at the doorway of the tent of meetings. Then the priest shall take one of the male lambs and offer it as a guilt offering with a log of oil, and present him as a wave offering before the Lord. He shall kill the male lamb in the place where they kill the sin offering and the burnt offering in a sacred place, the courtyard of the tabernacle. For the guilt offering, like the sin offering, belongs to the priest. It is most holy. The priest shall take some of the blood of the guilt offering and put it on the lobe of the right ear of the one to be cleansed, and on the thumb of his right hand, and on the big toe of his right foot. The priest shall also take some of the log of oil and pour it into the palm of his own left hand, and the priest shall dip his right finger in the oil that is in his left palm, and with his fingers sprinkle some of the oil 7 times before the Lord. Of the rest of the oil which is in his palm, the priest shall put some on the lobe of the right ear of the one to be cleansed, and on the thumb of the right hand, and on the big toe of his right foot, on top of the blood of the guilt offering. The remaining oil that is in the priest's palm shall be put on the head of one to be cleansed. The priest shall make atonement for him before the Lord. Next, the priest shall offer the sin offering and make atonement for the one to be cleansed from his uncleanliness, and afterward kill the burnt offering. The priest shall offer the burnt offering and the grain offering on the altar, and the priest shall make atonement for him, and he shall be clean. But if the cleansed leper is poor and his means are insufficient, then he is to take 1 lamb as a guilt offering to be weighed to make atonement for him, and 1/10 of an ephah of fine flour. Okay, blah, blah, blah. 2 turtle doves, 2 young pigeons, such as she can afford. Okay, blah, 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 blah. The priest shall take the lamb, blah, 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 blah. Same thing, rules. Okay, shall put this, Okay. This is the law for the one in whom there is an infection of leprosy, whose means are limited for his ceremonial cleansing an affected house. The Lord further spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying, when you come into the land of Canaan, which I am giving you as a possession, and I put a mark of leprosy on a house in your land. Then the one who owns the house shall come and tell the priest, I have seen something that looks like a mark of leprosy in my house. The priest shall order that they empty the house before he goes in to examine the mark, so that everything in the house will not have to be declared unclean. Afterward he shall go in to see the house. He shall examine the mark, and if the mark on the walls of the house has greenish or reddish depressions and appears deeper than the surface, the priest shall go out of the house to the doorway and quarantine the house for 7 days. Now, I don't remember this. The priest shall return on the 7th day and look, and if the mark has spread on the walls of the house, so green, would that be mold and reddish depressions? DEPRESSIONS. The priest shall return on the 7th day and look, and if the mark has spread on the walls of the house, he shall order them to tear out the contaminated stones and throw them into an unclean place outside the city. He should have the entire inside area of the house scabbed, and the plaster that is scraped off shall be dumped in a unclean place outside the city. Then they shall take new stones and replace the contaminated stones, and he shall take plaster and replaster the house. If, however, the mark breaks out again in the house after he has removed the stones and his scabbed and replastered the house, then the priest shall come and look again. And the mark has spread in the house. It is a malignant leprosy in the house. It is ceremonially unclean. He shall tear down the house, its stones and its timber, and all the plaster of the house, and shall take everything outside the city to an unclean place. Moreover, whoever goes into the house during the time that is quarantine becomes unclean until evening, and whoever lies down in the house to rest shall wash his clothes. Whoever eats in the house shall wash his clothes. But if the priest comes in and inspects it, and the mark he has spread in the house after the house has been replastered, he shall pronounce the house clean, because the mark has not reappeared. To cleanse the house, then, he shall take 2 birds, cedar wood, scarlet string, hyssop, and he shall kill one of the birds in an earthenware container over running water. Same procedure. Um, sprinkle the house 7 times. So he shall cleanse the house with the blood of the bird, with the running water, along with the live bird, and the cedar wood, and the hyssop, and the scarlet string. But he shall let the live bird go free outside the city. He shall make atonement for the house. It will be clean. This is the law for any mark of leprosy, even for a scale, and for leprous garments or house, and for swelling, and for scabs, and for a bright spot on the skin, to teach when they are unclean and when they are clean. This is the law of leprosy in regard to both persons and property. Wow. See, I was looking for. Okay, let's see. Why did God strike Moses' sister with leprosy? Sister-in-law, I thought. The Lord struck Miriam with leprosy as punishment for speaking evil speech against her brother. Moses immediately interceded on her behalf with a short, urgent prayer. The Lord relented and removed the leprosy, but Miriam still had to be put outside the camp for 7 days until she was ritually fit again. I thought that was Aaron's. Okay, maybe it was a sister. Aaron, Moses, Miriam. Okay. But yeah, leprosy was skin turning white. So I was thinking when he said that the Germans came back, I think they were the Vikings, if I'm not mistaken, because everybody had different color eyes. And when I read before that some of them, they did not cleanse. Okay, let's see. Were all the people cleansed with leprosy back in Moses' time? Because I remember reading the Bible that the ones that was not, some was considered clean. They can come back with their white skins. It took over their whole body. And some were shunned to the caves. And um, that's what I'm thinking. The Germans, the Vikings, uh, came back for revenge because they didn't get cleansed. So time went on. A lot of them didn't know their history, that they were actually part of the African heritage, deserved the land inheritance. And a lot of them probably got, this is my thinking, okay? they probably did a lot of them like that to take their land. You know what I'm saying? Because everybody wasn't nice, okay? Um, so, yeah, a lot of deceit probably was happening. And by them being, nobody coming looking for them, nobody cleansing them, it could have caused a big anger. You know what I'm saying? And they felt like they deserved the land also. And they wanted to take it at any force, make them suffer like they made them suffer. That's when I was reading different Bibles of different cultures and stuff like that, that's what I got out of it. Because I would be pissed off too. You left me, you know what I'm saying, unclean. And I had to stay. I didn't get, as time went on, the eldest died. The younger, was there doing whatever. And a lot of them didn't know the old ways. And like I said, remember the other one said that they stopped teaching, stopped serving the gods of Egypt because they were disappointed. So that's from my perception of that. Um, why today that the hatred. So I don't know. Might be wrong. I don't know. That was my thing. So anyway, use the restroom and I'll be back. So, hey, Joseph, who is Malcolm? Malcolm X glasses ain't prescription. Who cares? Man gone. Anyway, so that's my thing about that. So by everybody being kinfolk, everybody deserves a piece of the land. But it seems like there's still some lies going on, of what really happened. Because like I told, when I did my search, I asked the creators. I said I want to know the truth of what's going on. So they start having me. I ordered a lot of Bibles. I found a lot of Bibles. Each one of them said different stuff. I started reading different culture Bibles. Each one of them said different stuff. And I found the leprosy thing in there. But Now, I don't know if a Viking have a Bible. Let me see. I didn't read that because my finding was that the hatred came from them not curing everybody with the leprosy. When I read, and that caused hatred. Do the Vikings have a Bible? It says no. The HAVAMAL and the EDDAS and SAGAS are their main writings to follow. Moorish religion, is that what that is? Viking Bible called. Okay, it says the Viking Bible called STJORN is the name given to collection of Old Norse translation of Old Testament historical material dating from the 17th century, which together covered Jewish history from Genesis to Second Kings. Despite the collective title, it is not a homogeneous work. Rather, it consists of 3 separate works which vary a date and content, labeled Saint Jor, STJORN 1, 2, and 3 by scholar I.J. Kirby. I have no idea what this is. They're just showing this right here. The first one covers Genesis to Exodus 18 with much additional material from Peter Comestor and Vincent Bovas. The second completes Pentateuch. It is based closely on the text of the Vulgate, but is significantly abbreviated. Let me see. What is this? Oh, the Torah. Teaching of law is first book of the Bible. Torah is also known as Torah is known as that word Penta. 5 books of Moses, Jewish tradition, blah blah blah. Bound book form is written Arabic. I'm just explaining the books, it ain't explaining what it's saying. No, I didn't tell them what it's saying. Today, most movements. But that's what I got out of it. Because you ain't cured my ass and left me in a damn cave, I'll be mad at your ass, too. Roman, how you doing? I'll be that, Sunny boy. Okay, what I'm gonna do, y'all, doing the 999 portals, which was the 9th, the 18th, and the 27th. Now, I want to dig into, really, I read it on the first one, with that portal, what they're doing with that portal that's open, because they know, so many secrets, so many ways of moving around, going to people's house, taking over people's vessels. Um, if you go in the future, past, present, future, that's what I'm gonna do. Past, present, future. I'm putting out 9 cards. So we got CERN, we got what is that other one called? HAAP harp, or what's about whatever it's called. And Wonder Blue Storms. How do they get that knowledge to do that, to make the machines, to make the storms, to manipulate, and the other ones to go into the past, present, and future. Because seen many pictures of people up in that wasn't supposed to be in those pictures that were from the future or the past. And people have said many portals that they accidentally go into. I think one of the last one I heard, they was at the Grand Canyon, and the guy used the restroom and came out another door or something. When he came out the door again, he was somewhere else. One was in the future, one was in the past. They couldn't find their son for a minute or something, and the son came back through the door and told him he came out the door, but it was different people there. So we got plenty of portals all over the world. So I've even seen some, me and my daughter that passed away in February, when she was younger, I was taking her to school one day, and I seen in the sky, um, it was 2 figures at the bottom, walking like they were walking up some stairs, with like a body, or they were carrying something, looked like a body, and at the top up here was like 2 men waiting, 2 figures waiting as they going up the stairs. And I didn't know, I was, it was still tripping me out, so I started rebuking it. And they got all the way up with whatever figure they had in their hands, and until they got up there with the 2 men. I was assuming they were the watchers or something. I don't know. I'm just, at the time of reading the Bible, that's what I was thinking. And then the portal closed. And I seen that years ago. She was about maybe 10 or 11. She died at 24. So I used to see a lot of strange things. So I don't know what that means, this portal that opened on the 9th and finna open on the 18th and 27th. They keep so many secrets from us. We could be utilizing it, but since we don't know, you know what I'm saying? That's why knowledge is key. That's why I keep researching. You know what I'm saying? Like the other video, the man was talking about what they're using to keep us aging and dying for their benefit, to reincarnate us back here to be their slaves again. And also the memory thing and all of that, right? So that's why I say keep learning. You know what I'm saying? Keep the knowledge going. You know, they gonna be mad. Oh, you have 2 Jack. Hey, Jacqueline, how you doing? Grand Rising. Yeah. No, these tarot cards. Yeah. So yeah, just keep finding out stuff. They're not gonna like it, but you doing it for your own self. You know what I'm saying? Just like finding out about the ice walls. You know, and how the angelic republic comes here or try to come through to get some of his people. And the man, I forgot his name, William something. He went through the ice walls and found a whole, it's not planets up there, it's land outside of these ice walls of the whole world we call the world right here. And how they stole some of us from over there. And then he said those people were living 800 and more years old on the other side of the ice walls. It's like a prison already here. So Trump is putting a walls on type of walls. You know what I'm saying? He wants to put the wall. I said it on my last video. Show some videos, pictures of you. I want to go back and see that. So and then I was thinking about the walls of Jericho. Um, hey, big, hey, good. What's up? I'm a lady actually, but whatever you want to call me. Um, so the walls of Jericho by the Canaanites and the Israelites. See, I'm still puzzled from what I just read about the Israelites. Now he said that the Canaanites were the Moors. So I don't know. I'm gonna keep researching. Because we might have things all screwed up. You know what I'm saying? Because they be lying. They be lying their ass off. So the first card to pass, Virgo. Hey, Virgo, happy birthday. Four of Pentacles. Let me put some of them down first before I start. That's my elite card. And it's also saving, keeping something close to your chest. The money card. The Pentacles. That's Earth sign, Virgos. Okay, the second one, the present time, now. Okay, we have the future, Nine of Wands. Okay. Yeah, it's a general. Yeah. If it fits y'all, it fit, enlighten you, confirmation, just listening, maybe somebody you know. I don't know what's going to come out of it. Okay. So we got money improvements, more coming. Okay. I've got all the notes that the creators had me put on these cards as well. Let's see. It says one, somebody could win the lotto or win something, win some money. It also says stingy. It says banks, gamble. His heir could be coming from family or something you inherited, right? Or you having to reaping the benefits of. You know what I'm saying? The elite, the upper class. And it's also my mayor, governor, like I said, elite, stuff like that. Politicians. It says clinging, wealth, the wealthy. It's tight. Money might be tight. The other stuff faded out. Okay. Okay, that was the past. So you was good, had money, you know, maybe keeping it in the bank. You probably, still have it. We'll see. Okay, we got Pentacles again. Knight of Pentacles. Now I see this not only as like a police or soldier or somebody wearing a mask. I see it like, you got to go to work. You had to put on, sometime at work, you got to, you're not doing the same thing you do at home. You becoming like another person in order to do that work. You know what I'm saying? It's like you're wearing a mask. But, like you're a cashier or something, whatever. And y'all know what I'm saying. You got to put on the mask, go to work. It's different than you would at home. Because it's somebody else's job. Or it might be your company or whatever. Heirs also could be maybe you work for your family. Oh, really? Hey, Rachel, how you doing? Mm-hmm. What I'm talking about. You have to greet and meet people, and which is cool. And sometimes it's like, ugh. But anyway, or you could work for your family's company. It says hard work, stable, committed, focused, dedicated, reliable. It's also Sag energy, steady moving, so you might have to move around, Oh, it's good, Rachel. Um, Steady work. So, this is what you're doing right now. It says visitor, player, military, soldier, message, writing, armor, and offering. So I don't know if also this could be dating someone. You could be a player from the Himalaya, date a lot, you know. Not saying sexual or anything. There's nothing wrong with that. Could be like a person who just friendly, like talk to different people. If you're a cashier, you're talking to different people. Um, so you're doing what you're doing. You're dedicated. You're a good employee. Or you running a company for your family. Um, you might smile all day, all the kind of stuff. You get home and you don't smile at no damn body. But I'm just saying. Been cashier too many years. Okay, then we got 9 of Wands. So now we're going into fire, taking action. I hear you, living. How you doing? Um, it's in the finish line. You could be getting off work, or you could be waiting for something else to happen, or thinking about making something else happen, opening up something like that. Could be doing money spells, something like that. I hear you, girl. I say that too. Well, you should say it a lot, but everybody wishes that. Um, yeah, somebody a couple people when that $1 billion just left here. Hopefully they don't get harassed or killed for it. That's what I've been noticing. Not everybody, but it's been kind of crazy when you win that kind of money. I was watching this crazy movie one time. I mentioned it before, and these people had got money from this company or something, and they sent this evil dark spirit. I don't know if they shared it or whatever, but um, they wanted the money back. So I don't know. It says inner strength, finish line, push through, tired. Yeah, keep going. That's what you're doing. See, all those things may be happening. Study, hoping, wishing, doing money magic to make sure that you have enough. That could be if you're not working for the family, or it's like you're holding on to what you got. Um, stuff like that. Um, or just don't want to spend what you got in the bank. You know what I'm saying? For hard leaving that what old folks used to say, leave it for a rainy day or something like that. To make sure you good. You're gonna get kicked out of your apartment, whatever. When I win, yeah, definitely need to do a whole lot of that when you win. Cause I don't know. Just look at a lot of stories they say. I don't know if you have already on people who won the lottery. All right, here come a young one, Gabby. I had enough of my grandson today with that. Okay, so cut it out. It's 4 in the morning. Um, Push through, tired, undecided, stuck, wounded, confused. No giving up though. So yeah, this is Chiron card. I'm down, but I ain't at. Striving, keeping forward. Maybe it's on a job you don't like, and still trying to keep it going. Oh, for real? What they story? Yeah, I would be watching that stuff. Some of them do good, but some of them lose it, and something happen to different ones. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, because I don't want my picture done at all. I don't want that at all. Don't show me. Yeah, yeah. Stop, yeah. Don't make me get rid of you now. Chill out. Yeah, wounded. Yeah, stand on your feet, tired, all that kind of stuff. Okay, let's see what else, Bird. Going back to the past. I'm gonna put them all together. Could be past lives, could be, whatever. I'm gonna put it all together anyway. Okay, this one to come out. Okay. 9 of Cups. And my granddaughter went to, this is my party celebration or whatever. Went to a slumber party. This is my baby shower card. You know, feeling pleased with yourself. Maybe in the past felt pleased. Maybe, you know, you making it. You know what I'm saying? Got a couple notes on here. I need to turn on the big light. Could be a collector of things, certain things you like to collect. You might be a perfectionist, which most of y'all are. If you're having a dinner party or a party or something like that, you want to make sure everything is good. She probably did. See, it bring out some evil in people and some greed. You know what I'm saying? It's crazy. You'd have to really absolutely leave everybody, you know? People you thought that loved you, finding out they didn't really. That greed takes over. Oh, man, I tell you. It says, what is this? Oh, also, this is my bakery card. Because it looked like a bakery also to me. Somebody may work at a bakery. I put bedpost. Now, being a player, maybe somebody, you know, likes going to bed with different people. And, you know, kind of little black book. What this says? It says wish came true. So you did a spell, money spell, or whatever the deal may be, and it came true. Now you're celebrating, partying. Okay. I don't know why I just had sewing machine. Maybe somebody was making clothes. I don't know why I felt that too. Improvements underway. Okay. I was gonna say something about the cups. Let's see. A minute. Okay, let's do present. There go another young one. All right, y'all. It's too early in the morning for that. So yeah, I have enough of my grandson all week doing that. Okay. Present. Family. Children. Sister, brother, siblings. Okay. Somebody could be hanging out with them, hanging out with the kids. Like I said, my granddaughter went to a slumber party. It says childhood, maybe stay in the same neighborhood with your family around. Don't have to be. Old friends, you could be knowing people for a long time. You still around. Because my sister, she's a Virgo, and she's really into her husband's people. Yeah, she'd be really into it. Have been for 30, almost 40 some years. They've been married. Past hurts. Reconnected with old friends. Old haunting. Rekindling. Something haunting you. Could have had some bad experiences. Then we got an ex. Negative. Emotional connections. Inner child. Happy, childish, childhood. Comforts past. revisit old places. Okay. Say, for instance, some of y'all from another country, or finding out about your family, where you from. Yeah, so you down tonight, you ain't out. You gonna keep going. Yeah, healing it. That's the main thing to do, because the Hermit is Virgo card to heal. You know what I'm saying? Heal all that. Because if we don't, we usually blame, get bitter and blame game, which some of them, yeah. But we don't want to keep that inside. It takes time. I know you don't have to be a Virgo. We could be any zodiac sign with Virgo rising, whatever. It's just the energy of Virgo. It's just the energy anyway. Yeah. Okay, let's see. Let's go to future. Okay, Two of Pentacles. Could be juggling money. Damn, why I thought about the slot machine. This say gambling on that. Hey, somebody might hit the jackpot in the gambling casino. I don't know. I want to go to the casino, but this also my handcuffs card. Nah, it's sure not easy. You ain't lying about that one. Child, and then it started throwing something else in your face. Oh, for real? I've been trying to get there. Sooner or later. Yeah, I can't see nothing. Trying to focus. It says storms, conjuring, confused, twins. What else I got on here? Crossroads, aspirin. I said pills too. A juggling. Could be pills for pain. Color orange. What did it say? Car. Bifocals, glasses. Two choices. Could be working 2 jobs. I want to work 2 jobs. But whatever it is working in your favor. Yeah, well, they got the slot machines. I don't know. I ain't finna get on that card game. They be betting too high, and I don't know how to play that stuff either. Poker, none of that. Besides on the computer, I wouldn't dare get in there. They be playing some real money. Baby, no. I ain't doing that. So, maybe you have a twin. Let me see. Lining up with this neighborhood. Maybe you used to hopscotch or jump rope or something boomeranging back. Oh, for real? Yeah. Making a decision. Okay. Yeah, that could be that too. Whether to leave or not, or add another job. Could be taking care of siblings. Oh, for real? Yeah, could be taking care of siblings or something from childhood. Maybe you still have something like say you were born with a certain type of pain or defect or something like that. Medication, something like that. Because we got the Taurus, Capricorn, Virgo Taurus is also a doctor. Who erase your messages? All right, YouTube. Hey, Money Man. Okay, we're going back to past. Hangman. Standing on your own 2 feet. Yeah, I was saying about ailments. You know, could be handicapped. Stay in apartments or townhouses. Somebody ex a project or ex-boyfriend. Maybe you're gonna see an ex-boyfriend or ex oh yeah. Yeah. Take your spiritual bath. Yeah. They're doing too much. Way too much, man. It's crazy. On top of all the other shit you gotta go through, here come jealous folks. You know what I'm saying? Causing problems for you. You're already going through some bullshit. Other big leagues, they're trying to take you act and take your life and trade your destinies and all that shit. And here we go with regular folks supposed to be going through the same thing you go through, and they not healing and blaming you for their issues. You know what I'm saying? It's like, how did that happen? Okay, we got Hangman reverse. Something you might, something you might know about. You just said that, but you know what it is. So you're taking care of that. Somebody might have wanted to sacrifice you, and it didn't work. But it left you with some scars. It says action. Action what? Oh, Lord. I don't know if it's late and I can't see. Reflected. Reflected, yeah. Okay. Let's see what else we got here. Pisces energy. So something ran deep. Something goes deep. Okay. It says leg problems, maybe standing up as you work. I got the KKK. So they told me to put that on there. I was talking about back in the day, where the man was talking about how the punishments, dress differently, like you can go to work in something else, or somebody changing, going dancing, or you need to enjoy yourself. It could be at home. You don't have to go nowhere. It says waiting. The waiting is over. Hair different. I got a new attitude. It says, okay. And we got on him, I got what? Damn, I got vampire on there. See, this way, I put this because, okay, Rachel, Pisces, neuropathy. Ooh, okay, I'm definitely reading you. This, I thought about this because in Africa, they had a bat, a big old bat, like Dracula or whatever, be hanging from trees. And this way, it's in his human form. I don't know why I thought about that. This could be sucking you dry or something like that, or trying to suck you dry. Or, it's like the work, everything is like draining. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I'm getting that too. Yeah. trying to hold on to what you got in case something happened. Maybe getting, yeah. All human vampires, shit. They real. Cause this card over here, reverse, is the collecting blood, like samples. Could be at the doctor, getting samples to go to the doctor, different samples or something. But you really need to cure yourself with Mother Nature's plants in the old way. Look up different cultures on how to heal yourself, because they're going to keep you sick, okay? Then you might get hooked on them pain pills. So be careful of that. But this is, yeah, it's reversed. It wasn't reversed, but I was just reading it. Collecting souls, blood. Oh Lord, tell me about it. I wasn't supposed to be shopping in there, but I find more that I'm this area. I go in it more. I try to avoid it, and when I do go in, I try not to bring my phone. I want to have cash when I go in there, cause you know they got them tunnels. They got all kinds of shit going on. Walmart. Okay, that was past, but you know they all together. Don't have to be the past. It could be the present. Now what's happening? Present, speaking your truth. Could be protecting yourself. Kind of stern in what you say. What you say is what you mean. What you mean, what you say. What's your sign, Jacqueline? You know, sometimes you're going through. Okay, hello. Oh, Libra. Hey, Libra, gang, gang. Yeah. So, yeah, stern, saying what you're saying is swords, Libra, Gemini, Aquarius card. So, ancient. Okay, this could be the ancient. Going back to old times, like you just said, of getting medication, of going back to the old ways. Also, that chair she in look ancient to me. We got the ice walls. Oh, okay, okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so they definitely know how to take care of themselves. Hey, I forgot how to pronounce it. My cousin name. Lord have mercy. How you doing? Welcome, welcome, welcome back. Welcome back, Carter. Welcome back. What's his name? I just thought of his name. Oh, for me too. I was young when my grandma passed too. She used to cook in a for Italians at a restaurant. And they say the smoke, you know, they had like wood ovens and all that kind of stuff. So the smoke was getting in her lungs after time, and she caught cancer. But her doctor told her she can live longer than him if she took care of herself. She was an Aries. She just kind of gave up. Because I remember my mom she had to come stay with my mom till we moved back in her home. She had a home paid for and everything. Juanita, oh, okay. You and she had to come stay with my mom for a while, and my mom would give her food, and she would call us little was in there to eat it, and we didn't know no better. Shit, we 2, 3 years old. That's how I used to love Captain Crunch, not Captain Crunch, Rice Krispies. She used to like Rice Krispies. I started really loving Rice Krispies, but we didn't know no better. Yeah, I heard that being born with a veil. Yeah, I have heard a lot of people say they have. I don't know. My mama, if she ain't never tell me nothing like that. But I have heard a lot of people say that. But they treat me different in the family. I'm the baby of 10, and it's like they forgot about my ass. So I don't know how I was born. What I had. Okay, so let me see. I was talking about them ice walls. Cutting through something. Um, yeah, speaking with power and authority. You could be learning a new language, or you could be another culture. Um, like we say, the bloodline, different culture. It says a gun or a weapon to protect yourself. Ooh, okay. We got judge, honest, truth. What is that? Being honest and true and making decisions. So you're trying to get a good answer. I guess, should you go to this job or should you change jobs or whatever the deal is, move back to your old neighborhood, you know, maybe it's cheaper, I don't know. Or move to a cheaper apartment, downsizing, up, you could be going up, I don't know, according to how your money is, buying a home, whatever the deal may be. It's not bad at all, Virgo. Not bad at all. Just watch these haters. Shake them haters off. Shake them haters off. Somebody ex lingering. I don't know if you want to see the ex. It says rekindling. Or ex neighborhood. Or I don't know if you're into space stuff. Project X. Could be into Sirius. The planet or the realm or whatever it is. Astronomy. Could be into the stars with the Two of Pentacles. Like diamonds. Could be married, don't have to be. Or shacking up, whatever. Or not. Maybe you want to be, I don't know. King of Cups reverse. So I say shake the haters off. Or either really not into your feelings. Kind of like, you know, doing what you got to do, and whether you hurt or not, or whatever the deal may be, you're going to keep on keeping on. Well, there you go. It could be a spine, too, in a way. Watching or talking about you, at least. King of Cups, water sign. Cancer, Pisces, Scorpio. It says pirate, dangerous, mean, rebellious boss. So this could be a boss that you're dealing with that's kind of giving you a hard time. Father figure, husband, whatever. I'm just talking about marriage. Hi, you. Of course not. Why would they come up the same thing? The spirits are doing this, and the ancestors. They know you. I don't know y'all. Whoever this is for, you know. So as I shuffle, they tell me what's on the cards. It's gonna be different for every person. Why would it be the same for each person? Hey Adam, how you doing? Hey Trey. Grippy. What is grippy? I don't know what grippy means. I'm doing okay. Right on the knuckle. You so right. Oh yeah. Talking about that. Yeah, me either. I don't know why people don't have a problem with letting go. You know what I'm saying? Yesterday was good. We'll see how the day goes. Unfolded. Just got started. Adam. Let's say you do a reading once, shuffle the deck, and then do mine again right after. Shouldn't the same exact cards come up? Come on now. You know the exact same cards ain't gonna come up. You shuffling. You play cards before? You know it's not gonna come up the same. When he what? When he E-N. What's that? E-A-N. Oh, okay, whatever you want to say, Hugh. Okay. You need to think about what you just said. Go get your deck of cards and you tell me if the same cards come up. Then you'll have your answer. Okay? My mom passed by. Husband started drinking 6 years ago. We're separated after 14 years. And I'm taking care of Dad now, and he wants to come here when he wants. When he wants to, or U.S., Louisiana. Okay, if you don't feel like, if you feel it's gonna be a problem, don't do it. Whoever it may be, you know what I'm saying? See, if you're not sure, you know, you can still help out without them coming in your space. Now, how you gonna take care of him and you got something going on? No, I wouldn't do it. Oh, you from Missouri? I wanted me and my ex to move to Missouri years ago. Joanna, Janita. Hi again, Janita. Oh, Missouri, you from Missouri? Mm-hmm. Okay, wait a minute. I'm getting confused. Oh, shit, who was I? Yeah, I was Jacqueline. And then I'll turn, okay, Janita, you was talking about your mom. Okay, I was thinking, I thought I was talking still Jacqueline. Yeah, you know, if you got issues you can't take care of. Tommy, what is yes I am? Okay, for some reason I put another card, y'all. Three of Cups reverse. I wasn't expecting to do that. Now that's coming after King of Cups. So you're not gonna be celebrating. It ain't gonna be a good thing. Yeah, they do. Very much so. Mm-hmm. This is take off your clothes. It could be modeling or something. Somebody wants sex, child. Bad witches, revenge. Couldn't all end good. I tell you, them haters, shake them haters off. Casual, no social life, affairs. It says force you, or force a Babylon. Because it's hell Zeus, the other side. It says no one, depending on money, not free. Standing by your own, maybe cut a whole bunch of people off in your life that wasn't serving you. And I don't know if you cut off a water sign or people, you know what I'm saying, who were feeling some type of way. I feel like they didn't really care about you. That could be that too. Ace of Cups say you can get a helping hand, a gift given to you, truth, intimacy, love. Okay, that's coming after. So you want sex, you walking away from that shit. Player from the Himalaya. Yeah, you walking away from that security, whatever. Water overflow. Helping hand, clean, overflow. So you either wash your hands of this. That's what I'm saying too. You wash your hands of that. You're not going back. Or it's saying wash your hands of that. What's up, homie? Yeah, wash your hands of that, turn your back on that. All that water. It's like, nah, that's going to be a headache. Whatever the situation is, if it's ex, family member, whatever the deal may be, um, somebody thought it was a bright idea to come back and mess with you or call you back or something, like time passed, you know what I'm saying? And you're going to forget everything that happened. That's a no. That is a no. They could have, that up here could have been using magic on you right here, um, to make you go through stuff. But the Knight of Pentacles and Nine of Wands, you're fighting things off. Your ancestors, of course, got you. But, yeah, maybe you didn't know where it was coming from. People like to see you down and out. I remember my Taurus, before he passed on, I used to ask him that, why do you feel the need to put me, try to make me feel low, and then you want to come back to the rescue? It's like that song Rihanna had, Throw Me Against the Wall. I forgot all the lyrics to it. But that's what I used to get with him. I said, why I got to be down in order for you to come around and like pull me up, you be my rescuer, when you the one throw me against the damn wall. You know what I'm saying? Oh shoot, my phone going out, y'all. Let me put it on charge. It's like, what's wrong with you? It's like people don't heal, and they want to come in your space, with some BS. Like you gotta take that. I ain't gotta take nothing, shit. And you done, doing good, got yourself together, healing yourself, and here they come. Is that charging? Oh, yeah, it is. Oh, shoot. Ain't gonna act right today. Okay. I like that. Nope. I had it some kind of way yesterday. It stayed. Okay. I'm crooked now here. It's like, why you do that? I don't know. So, secretly spying, Page of Swords. Yeah. No focus, hot-headed, the person. Moody, got a lot of baggage, and they want to bring all that shit to you. Yeah, that's a narcissist. Correct the mundo. I don't know the man, Charlie. I was trying to listen to bits and pieces. My condolences to his family. I wish everybody well, living or non-living. Pootang. Y'all little kids up early. So yeah, this person wants you back. Toxic. Ten of Pentacles reverse. Stolen inheritance. What is it? Racketeering or stealing. Toxic. Lack mindset. Robbery or warning. Dark side of money. So this person do some bullshit. Or this could be family. They family, yours, whatever the deal is. Find another way to beat the system or something like that, or work for this, not going to, what is that? Not going to it. don't know, somebody got a family reunion coming up. Somebody avoiding it. Or they didn't, my family probably ain't told me about my family ain't having none. Don't nobody get along. Something about taxes. Could be home taxes, land taxes, or regular taxes. A loss in money. Or this relationship was, situation. A loss. Lost cause, something. That's why you treat people right when you got them. 10-4. Affirmative message received. That's my police codes I got on here. Hopefully message received. Yeah. So, okay, they still got me pulling. 8 of Swords, trapped. The hell. That's it. 9. Victims. Frustrated. Want another victim. Frustrated, stuck, lost. Don't want to see in jail. Okay. Negative mindset. So, leave people where they're at. Damn, I gotta get these cards. I ain't gonna be able to. It's gonna fall. Oh, shoot. Why you can't do like you did? Okay, there you go. I need to be gentle. Try to use a voodoo doll to cause heartache, fire on your feet, needles, pain, even death. Rebuke, no weapons formed against you shall prosper. Don't want you to know who you are so they can reincarnate you to continue being their slave. Women rapists, to watch your kids. Be careful with your children. Women rape too. There was an incident in my granddaughter's school yesterday. So I don't know who playing again. Y'all already took my daughter out. Somebody gonna come to the school, and she been going to that school, and the people in the office know her name, and they gonna call her down. The name wouldn't even like her name, and they gonna send her to the office saying one of her kinfolks coming to take her out of school. So you know that's a setup. That's why I want them to be homeschooled, because you know those teachers and principals, they part of that damn trafficking too. You know, they part of it. Matter of fact, I was going to the store. I don't know exactly what time it was, but I heard the kids playing in the playground, and one was just screaming. And I started to go, because it's right across the street from us. I started to go over there. I just felt uneasy, I just felt uneasy. And then when she came home, and she's smart, she told him, she said, that's not my name, and that's not my people, and what if they would have made her or whatever, and then my daughter tell them who would come get her. But somebody planned that, you know what I'm saying? Somebody planned that. Or it was a warning for me or my daughter or something. But yeah. It's all right. No weapons formed against you will prosper. And believe me, what goes around come back to you. Says your mother. What goes around come back to you. Says shadows. Or maybe your mother visiting you. She's deceased, but she's still around. Oh, what is this? Oh, yeah. Tell you, that's what I try to do. Y'all don't have to. Why y'all click on tarot if y'all have a problem with it? And you can make your own channel. You ain't got to, this for people who know about it, you know? So if you're uncomfortable, you don't have to stay where you're not, where you uncomfortable. Why would you do that to yourself? I don't look at stuff that's going to make me uncomfortable. Unless it's some knowledge I have to do for my future, you know, that I didn't know. Of course, sometimes things that you need to know becomes uncomfortable. But if you don't like it, you don't have to, you can click off at any time. Artist Dudley. Coming out of the sea. So I don't know if your mom was a water sign, either one of y'all, watching over you. Or she went home to her peoples in the sea. Mommy watching them. Vapors, humidify, breathe, clean air. Somebody either do them smoke vapors or need to get a humidifier for air. Oh, she was a Taurus. Okay. Maybe her opposite is water. So maybe her rising sign. Clean air. Whoa. I hear you, Dudley. My channel. April 29th. Aries, yeah, Aries, Taurus. I call it, at the end of the month, I call them, you know, both the signs. That's power at the end, at 29. That's a powerful number. That's 11 too. I'm trying to fix this thing. Yeah. It says superstitious ain't the way. No. Yeah, he was. Have to let him go. His phone by my YouTube, my channel. I don't know what part of that he didn't understand. FBI building. Somebody dealing with the FBI or FBI agent or something. Are they listening? How y'all doing? How you doing? Oh, the last reading was Sagittarius. And I seen it say sacrifice Aries, sacrifice Virgo. And it was one more sign. So I don't know if you're dealing with Aries or not. Please don't test me. I'm pretty sure that's what you're telling people. Please don't do it. Don't do it. Don't eat or drink from them. Father, sister, or brothers killed him. Oh, shoot. It's not going to stay. I'm almost done anyway. I'm almost finished here in a minute. Trying to get these cards out. Jungle warfare, Rambo against the corrupt system. Robin Hood says, so you don't want to do a Rambo on. Because we can take it there. Reverse. Don't curse me out. My manager named Rambo. Oh, what? That's up. Somebody may not curse. Maybe wait till they get home and curse. Gotta wear that mask. He, she, they are a spy. They kill or kill 3 at a time to get what you want. Okay, now that's for somebody who their sacrifice was reversed. Coming through the thunderstorms, beams. So there's somebody in Hollywood or something. I was talking about the elite when I first started off. Janitor. Looking at you through a mirror. Your mirror. Cover your mirrors and TVs. Your sister Pisces. Matter of fact, I didn't cover my TV. I covered that mirror, but I ain't covered the TV. I'm gonna have to cover that. Yeah, they do be watching. Hand and feet, that's Pisces again. Hands is Gemini or Capricorn. Hands. Didn't get paid for killing. Oh, Lord. Something. Who is sent? Johnny. I don't know, Johnny. You have to get a reading. You want to question this, $5. A reading is $45 for now. Blame. Let's lie and say they the problem, so no one will listen to them, even if they telling the truth. People love lies more than truth, so they will believe us. Somebody got some shit going on. It's all kind of Virgos. Stay safe. Stay safe, child. Wrong address. They got the wrong one, child. So I don't know if somebody went to the wrong address or knocking on the door and you say you're at the wrong house. I don't know why I got safe house. Stay safe and safe house. I don't know. August. Y'all too old for this. Shoot, you together and y'all good, child. I wouldn't be tripping on nothing but focusing on me and him. Somebody not a sexual being. Maybe somebody else is. Or somebody saying they got rid of it. Sexual problems. Yeah. Yeah, from centuries. Yeah. And I was wondering when I was growing up, my mom and them used to cover mirrors, especially when it's raining. And I'm seeing that I don't know if something could come through it in the rain. And the lightning and stuff. And they said because the lightning might hit the mirror and cause an issue. But I'm thinking maybe it was deeper than that. And they never said anything, you know? Congress, silence involved. Y'all can be a gangster. We can be gangsters too. Yeah, people don't always know who they fooling with. They started new tactics, illusions to fool you. Fear again, rituals, stealing your energy. Yeah, poor, correct. Reverse going to jail. So I know somebody's trying to make you go to jail. It says 5 a.m. We're at 5 a.m. now. It's reverse. So I don't know what was somebody's plans. Okay, let's see. We got stop calling me, person or agency. Changing your number. Somebody being a bugaboo. Sacrifice Aries is reverse. They need more money and gold. Damn, how much money you fuckers need. For real, for real. Man. Oh, man. I keep forgetting about this thing. I was supposed to be going gentle. I keep forgetting. How much do they need, man? Greedy, 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 greedy. They want everything. God damn. Then they squandered it. You know, and then they want to take somebody else's money after they done got rid of their damn money. It's so crazy. just like their bodies, fuck up their bodies, then they want to take some of our parts out of our body. The doctor lie and say something wrong with us, so they can take that part and give it to the elite. They don't want nothing and don't want you to have nothing or be nothing. Boom. Hiding their temple. So somebody ain't hiding their temple. It might be you. It says underground. They pop up or want to pop up to finish you off. Have someone close to you watching and telling them about you. It says the wrong state of mind right now, man. That Rambo sounds right by right. Will you join my third-party relationship? That's a no. It's reverse. Face it. Some of your kids are murderers, criminals, and enjoy it. Generational curses. That's reverse. So hopefully not. I don't think this spell would backfire. I didn't think this spell would backfire on my family. I use high protection. Reverse. So it backfired on somebody's family. Trying to come for yours or mine. It's the melanin. It's like gold to them. Yeah. Correct the mundo. That's what the beings be trying to, because they want all the gold. So we definitely got the gold. And then the melanin too, because they're taking out skin and putting it on robots and all that. And then they find out they can't control the melanin. Because the melanin has a mind of its own. Yeah, they doing way too much. I be glad when our ancestors, they're already here. Bring this chaos. That's why y'all see a lot of chaos. There's a lot of spiritual warfare and physical going on. Because the asses did way too damn much. Now I can understand, like I said, about the Vikings and keeping them in the caves and all that. But that these beings pump them up too much. Both sides. We got the Boule and all them too. Because we're fighting against each other. And not only blacks, whites do it too, Mexicans do it too, all cultures. They find a way to make everybody think they better than each other or whatever they do, we do, and that's keeping everybody in slavery. That's keeping each other down. They just watch us fuck over each other. You know what I'm saying? And they sit back and laugh at our ass. Want you to be jealous of them, competition and competing. Reverse. You say there is no competition. Ain't nobody playing them games, child. Trying to make it. Gotta worry about no bullshit like that. Unless it's a big old ass prize. You know what I'm saying? Getting a competition with sports or something. Or whatever. Somebody gonna win some money. Family of bloodline warlocks or secret societies. I'm pretty sure we all got them. Generational curses. Is it used for good or bad? It's what you need to know. Yeah. What did they do? So that's what we need to be researching, our own damn family. Ancestors brought ready to show who really are the chosen people. I see it coming, my sister. Oh, yeah. Yeah. You already picked out. That's why they making sure you're okay. Your baby daddy or mama messing with you. Evil eye or spell work. Love or disaster spell. Child. They don't people sit down somewhere. One more out of this dick. Will you be my boyfriend or girlfriend? Now that's on you, child. This might be a child, too. My grandson, a Virgo. Your best friend is this little white girl. They play robots and stuff. They don't admit they boyfriend or girlfriend. She be like, tell your mom, tell his mom I said I got to go to this class or whatever today. I'm like, oh, shit, this thing making too much damn noise. I'm like, okay. But they've been talking for a long time. Friends, they like in first grade. They met in pre-K. So, hey, whatever. Oh, I was gonna say about the Moors when the Europeans sold the whites for slavery because they had whites as slaves. They had their own people as slaves. So did the blacks, everybody did, but the whites were the first slaves sold to the Moors. And they liked it being with the Moors because the Moors believed that, say they sold most of the women. Not all Moors. We know ain't all of them. Okay, let's get that. But the ones that did treated them with respect, and they didn't treat them like their people. So I'm pretty sure a lot of them married them, and I'm pretty sure their children, some children came out dark, some of them came out bright skinned. You know, that's why I tell people check your bloodline. Which we all part of the same bloodline, but it could be, you know, closer than you think. Not your child, take care of your own. So somebody might be an ex, got a child for him. He been taking care of other people's children and ain't took care of yours, his own blood. How can you leave your blood somewhere and not care what happens to it? I don't understand that. I don't get it. I never understand that. Something you made like a Vikings age. Hello. I never understand that at all. You can just don't care if they eat or have a place to stay or whatever. Bully at school, help them with their homeworks, put them in bed at night, kiss them, help them say the prayers, read a story, take them places. The girls be the first date they had with their dad. You know, buy them their first jewelry. The sons teaching them how to be a man. You know, I'm sorry. It's just a lot. It's just like, I don't get it. Your child killing animals, future serial killer. Oh, damn. From another dimension or realm. They could have gave you a Cabbage Patch child. Or that's what your mate did. And secret serial killer. Be careful, pay attention. Oh, boy. From another dimension. It says passageway. Some block. Learn how to train you from wise elders so you can be wise and run a kingdom. Okay. So we see we had that 10 of pentacles. So somebody trying to steal your inheritance. Might be a kingdom. Your kids are loved, protected, and safe by the creators, ancestors, archangels, and guides. Hello. She was poisoned. Change the death certificate. Planning your funeral. Spells to make you spend all your money. But these people never stop, do they? Did I change cards already? I don't even remember. We got dentist. I definitely need to go. Doctor. I don't know about the doctor, but I'm doing it the old-fashioned way. I don't trust that one up. Maybe it's try to make you take your wisdom teeth out so they can give it to the elite. Ain't shit wrong with them. No. Taking I didn't know at first. They took one out years ago. Till I started researching where they put it in. Ancestors put it in my way. Don't you give your wisdom teeth to nobody, no. Somebody with the letters T and A, Anthony or Tony. My nephew, I seen him today. It's reverse. Or not. Fake friends, reverse. Adopted, finding out who your family is or not. Now, I want to say that, too, for a lot of people that's been adopted or in foster homes or treated badly by their mom and dad or whatever. Not every mom and dad is bad, okay? Don't do that to other people that trying to make it with their family. You don't know what they've been through. And you see they getting along and you find out a way. You don't know what the fuck that family been through. But you find out a way to try to corrupt the family because you didn't have that. You know, when you were growing up, that's not fair. You know what I'm saying? Don't do that to people. Yeah, that's your wisdom. Shit, that's why it's called wisdom teeth. You know what I'm saying? Hi, Zip. Yeah, don't do that to people. Everybody's not bad. Me and my kids been through hell. And then for y'all to throw more hell on us, that's not fair. So when that punishment hit, and it will, you know, Yeah, that's cold. We've been through some shit. It's just, I don't know. Got waitress. Stop disrespecting magic karma. It's reverse. When somebody don't play with magic, but somebody else do. It's like, you are your own twin flame. Keep it together. Hello, Gemini energy. Either you're too masculine or too feminine, so marry the two. Cop shot unarmed man, innocent, handcuffed. Damn. Okay, one more, yeah. I'm getting out of there. Do my chakra wisdom right quick. One more to quarter. Says betrayed, clearing your name. These folks. I don't know why people do it. Are they living in the same? Maybe they do live in another dimension, because this world is crumbling. It's full of some evil shit. For them to be focused on somebody else. I don't know. Well, maybe they part of the problem. Maybe they, yeah. Because he was saying about Africa back in the day, and I said that didn't have all them storms and all that shit, you know. But we start getting crazy, and we brought up all them storms. We opened up Pandora's box. Okay. Message for Virgo and whoever else needed. Third chakra, solar plexus, self-discipline. My self-discipline and willpower will significantly help me in my efforts to move forwards and grow. I am free of the need for the approval of others. I face each challenge with determination and courage, and I am determined to live my life to its fullest potential. I am strong, capable. My action speaks louder than my words. Hello. That's true there. That's that karma. Well, every culture had their own way of saying it, but that's what I grew up on, what you saying. Sow what you reap what you sow. And what you put out comes back to you. It's another one I can't remember. But I'm done, y'all, and I'm sleepy. And I'm finna go lay it down. It's nice talking to y'all. I really appreciate y'all. Appreciate y'all coming and talking and discussing. All right, John, go to bed. Yeah. Goes around, comes around. Definitely. Good or bad. Oh, all right, y'all. Love y'all. Have a great morning, day, whatever country y'all in or wherever y'all at. It's daylight over here. Gonna be 6 o'clock. Talk to y'all later. Love y'all. Stay strong. All right, next time.